Okay, good evening. Today is Tuesday, April 11th, and it is the Battery Park City Committee of Community Board 1. My name is Justine Cuccia, and I am the chair of the committee. I'm going to make an announcement that Jeff Galloway is my co-chair. Thank you, Jeff, for being here. I also would like to introduce, I know Mary Ann Braverman is texting me for a panelist password right now. Can you text her back, Lucian? Want to also introduce my committee. We've got Dr. Betty Kay, we have Eric Flores, we've got Jimmy Sung. Let's see, I'm looking to see I can't see who else is here, which is a problem. All right, well, that was the downside of me doing the phone. Anyway, anybody else who's here, just pop up and say hello because I can't see. Anyway, thank you so much, and let's get started. What is going on? Here we go. I got you as the host, Lucian. And I see this. Yep.
It's Mary Ann Braverman, the password.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So she should be coming on right now. And I also see our esteemed chair, Tammy Meltzer, who is on with us. Since we do have quorum, why don't we get started? Lucian, if you want to pull up assuming that everybody's here. Nick, are we good to go with the first, the Pataki Parkway activation? Is everybody here who needs to be?
Hey there. Good evening, Justine. Is Varun on? He should be.
You should make him a panelist.
Yeah, just tell me who needs to come over. I have just moved over Varun. Who else?
Should be Varun and Mimi tapped. If she's on, you can move her over. But
Yep,
Varun is
I
the
see
main
Mimi.
one. Thank you, Varun.
No, thank you, Nick. Thanks for piping up.
Of course.
And while we are talking, I'm going to try and see if I can get onto with the computer without sound. So I can do two things at once. Actually, no, not this way. So it has been a day. I apologize in advance for being a little stressed out because I'm kind of stressed out today. So excuse me. Nothing to do with anybody here, nothing to do with anything else, but it has just been a day. Open launch webinar. And Sarah, I saw your note. Thank you. You're here. If you're on the phone, I'm on the phone too. You're going to need to put your camera on to get. Is that correct, Lucian? Camera has to be on to be recognized to be.
Yeah, as being remotely present as a board member and vote, make motions, we'll need to see your camera on for the ability to turn on one's camera.
Perfect. Webinar link. Why is this so difficult?
Varun, Mimi, do you have a presentation that you need me to share for you, or are you able to share your own screen?
I can share my screen or.
Yeah, Lucian, you should have the presentation I sent you just a few minutes ago. It had three decks in it. If you have that, let me know. It's the first one there titled it has a date and it says 4CB1. That's the first one. That should be the presentation for Varun.
Like I have pre-phase.
That's it.
CB1, that's the one?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Lucian.
Yeah,
And Varun for the, and Mimi for the great work.
Okay. You let me know, Varun, Mimi.
Okay. All right, should we get started?
Justine, are they good to go? You want to start on this item?
Oh, and let's get going. It's perfect. Thank you so much. So Varun and Mimi, introduce yourselves and explain how we're starting this. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, my name is Varun Kohli. I'm the AVP for Planning and Design with the Real Property Group at Battery Park City Authority. Mimi?
And I'm Mimi Taft. I'm the Senior Manager of Special Projects working on this with Varun.
Great. So thank you, Justine. Thanks to the committee for having us. We wanted to come back to you. I know we have had previous conversations. We had presented to you some thoughts very early on, and we got some feedback from you. And we went back and did a few things, including reaching out to the local, additional community members, including the schools, some after-school programs, and some local residents, including neighboring commercial spaces. So we had a number of conversations there to kind of get their feedback and input. The other thing that we did was we took your feedback. A couple of key points that we took away after our initial conversation was, one, keep a light touch. So we kind of kept that as our parameter. The second was to pay attention to safety for pedestrians walking through this space. And the third thing was more, focus on sort of passive activities or passive nature of this space rather than an active nature. So we kind of took all of that. We got additional feedback. We took these points. We went back to our design team and pretty much started almost from scratch again. And we've kind of altered our approach to this process also to say that instead of trying to, in one shot, try to create an overwhelming or one set of design and then executing it, we thought it might be a better approach to kind of break it up into smaller chunks, smaller phases, which would allow us to start making some adjustments to the space so that it allows for the space to be used. At the same time, also continue to get feedback from the community. So if we did something very light touch and we got feedback and something was not working, we could change it. So that's the approach we have taken, sort of almost organic in a way, that we allow this space to kind of take shape. We go to the next slide. Actually, you know what? I don't want to speak much to this. We had presented to you this before, but this was just kind of acknowledging the fact that there is a nature of space that shifts slightly from being a little more public to more neighborhood type. Next slide, please. Right. So here, this is one thing that we did, and I'm not sure, Justine, if we actually presented this slide to you before, but
I don't
What we-
remember it, but go ahead.
yeah. So what we did was we looked at the pedestrian walkway north of the space that we're talking about, the proposed site area. And there is this 12-foot clear walkway, right? So we identified that as being a minimum pathway for pedestrians going through this space. And what we did was we asked the designers to keep that at a minimum through the entire site where we are proposing any changes. So you see the dark green line that continues down, and currently what we're showing is the way it is at the moment is you have about 30 feet wide space in the zone that we are proposing to make changes.
Okay.
Go to the next slide now.
Let me interrupt. So this is not in any way, shape, or form touching or doing anything with the bikeway, right? The bike path part?
Oh, no.
Okay,
We are, I should point that. So we are currently only looking at that green space between the bike path and Little West Street.
in Little West Street. And where does that little dotted green line go? Does that go all the way to the other side of Little West Street or no? Well, it does. That goes,
Oh,
crosses, that encompasses the street or that whole, that green dotted line?
no,
of-
please ignore that because that
Okay.
dotted line doesn't mean that that's our site. No.
Okay,
We're strictly kind of within that space of the green space. We're not going into the street at all.
okay.
So if you go to the next slide, please, Lucian. Right, so here you see what we meant. So the idea was then that, okay, if the yellow spaces further north are these activated public spaces, along with that 12 feet pedestrian walkway, that we maintain that width of 12 feet. And then the remaining space, 30 minus 12, 18 feet plus minus, would be what we would be left with to do any kind of, programming or alteration or changes, which means that we continually maintain that walkway, and then whatever is left over is what we are working with. Next slide, please. So essentially, this is what we end up with, where if you look at, and you can't see my cursor, but if you look at the space, that greenway space between the two green patches, which is roughly 30 feet, we always maintain that 12 feet pedestrian space, and then the leftover roughly 18 feet becomes our zone that we activate. Next slide, please. So the one thing we had to do was, we do want to activate this space sooner than later. Wagner Park is already not accessible anymore. So we wanted to start to do something, and one of the sort of the asks from within BPCA has been that we try and activate this, as soon as the weather gets nice, and given that this year is getting nicer before expected, we want to try and get something going, which brings people to the space. So the approach, as I explained before, the approach we're trying to take now is to say, okay, we can't necessarily go and do everything, but what if we took a small area, not a small area, but a good portion of the area, just in terms of the size, like instead of doing the full length, we took that blue box and did something there, and then even further broke it down and said, within that blue box, while we're still kind of figuring out, the extent of the design and what we want to do, what if we did something immediately with very minimal, touch that would allow and begin to attract people into the space, give them something to, just to go there, right? So if you go to the next slide, so basically just in what we were saying is phase one will be that blue box and perhaps some touches where you see those blue bars, and it might be just some furniture or something like that, but nothing, nothing more than a light touch. So if you go to the next slide, Lucian. These are just pointers that we heard back from in our conversations with some of the local community members, and we gave this to our design team. And again, the passive space notion came back quite a bit. Having flexibility was important. When we spoke to certain schools and after school programs, they were, asking for perhaps pop-up area for playing. There was also, we heard quite clearly, trying to understand the space differential between younger kids and older kids. If we were going to do that, paying attention to safety, especially if there are areas that are going to be designated for younger kids, we need to pay attention to that. So we took all of this sort of feedback and, again, have given this to our designers as design parameters to use as they work through the design. Next slide, please. So this is where sort of we are at, and I'm going to explain this to you. But even before we get to phase one, which is still something we're designing through, what we thought was, what if we did something, we're calling this pre-phase one, and we'll continue to break this down, but the pre-phase one essentially does nothing more than changes the surface treatment and, uses some of the existing furniture that we have salvaged from Wagner Park, and we bring that furniture here, which would include things like the picnic tables and some chairs and tables. Very simple. And then what you're seeing on this slide here, I mean, the blue and the green is that, again, that chunk of space between first place and second place. Am I saying that correct, Mimi? Is it first place and second place?
Yes, first place, second place, just that 18-foot wide section, leaving the 12-foot pedestrian area.
So we still have, so this colored area is that 18-foot band, still leaving that 12 feet as it is. And the blue represents a vinyl, almost like a sticker that goes onto the ground. It's designed for outdoor use in public spaces. And the green is, you know, a fake turf, which is very thin. It just kind of gets laid on top of the existing stone. And the black border is just something that it helps negotiate that, you know, an inch differential between the turf, the fake turf, and the flooring and the existing pavement. So if you go to the next slide. Right. So you can see this in three-dimensional, what we are proposing. Again, really simple. It's just changing the surface treatment of the ground, bringing in the furniture that we currently have. And in a way, we're trying to kind of get some excitement going and announcing that something more will happen. And you know, the idea behind this was twofold. One, we could get something like this done fairly quickly, and you know, be ready, you know, before the onset of summer. And at the same time, by doing something as simple as this, we start to kind of, you know, observe how community might use this space, also start to get some feedback, and it allows us to kind of adjust our, you know, our progress into design and kind of organically form this space as we, you know, as we get feedback. So the next slide. So one thing we also asked our designers to do was, excuse me, to you know, to kind of think about the art side of things in a, you know, this blue vinyl pattern that goes on the ground actually in an abstract way kind of represents the original outline of the western edge of Manhattan. And you know, it's very abstract in some sense, but it kind of alludes to what it looked like, you know, certain, I think there were different time periods that it talks about. So they're developing this graphic in with some abstract notion of what the water's edge looked like centuries ago. And I think we're going to have some description that talks about what it was. And then really just creating these boxes that call out certain types of spaces, again, to kind of just generate a reaction from the community. You know, we're calling this a meeting deck, a stage, a gateway portal, just to kind of an outdoor classroom for the schools nearby. Just throwing things out there to start to sort of generate a feedback and a dialogue. So that's where we're at right now with this. We want to get the pre-phase 1 activated ASAP, so we can get moving. And then at the same time, on a parallel path, we are working with the designers to kind of develop the phase 1 project. I think that's all we have.
Thank you so much, Varun. I know pretty much people are going to have questions. I see Tammy's hand is up. Anybody else want to raise their hand? But before I call on Tammy, I just have a couple. So when you say maybe it'll be furniture, maybe it'll be this, maybe that, do you not have specifics yet?
I'm sorry, for pre-phase 1?
Pre-phase
Or this-
1, you're saying, I could see in this slide, you've got the picnic tables from Wagner Park. That's great. And
Yeah.
then the blue part that's here is
It's the vinyl flooring. Yeah.
vinyl floor, okay. And what I have is a like question. Who did you speak with? Do you have a list of the folks you spoke with? and I'm hoping some of them are on here. Like, what schools did you speak with? What nursery schools?
Mimi, can you help me out here? Who all we spoke with, or Nick?
Yeah, Nick connected us with both faculty and heads of the PTA at the school. And one of the things we heard, especially from the middle school, was that those kids are able to go outside for lunch. They used to eat lunch in Wagner Park. And so the opportunity for them to have a place where they could have lunch outside is sort of what prompted us to think about moving the picnic tables over there.
So when you say that school, you mean PSIS 276?
Yes.
Okay. How about the younger kids? Did you speak to any of the daycare? There's a nursery school. What is it called? A Montessori Day School. There's the Battery Park City Day Nursery. There's another nursery in the Cove Club. Have you spoken to them as well?
We haven't spoken to the daycare. We did speak to faculty from the lower school, like the third, fourth, fifth grade teachers. And we spoke to the gentleman who operates the after-school program and that used to use Wagner Park for like their photography
Townley?
class.
The gentleman, Bob Townley, or one of
Yeah.
his staff members? Yeah, okay.
Him. And also, we did speak to some of the folks who run the soccer programs, and this space they all agreed was really not appropriate for that
Yeah.
kind of use.
Mhm.
But they did say that, these were residents who also use Wagner Park a lot. So the idea of being able to have a space that felt green was something that they thought would be perceived as an amenity.
All right. I have questions about why you didn't reach out to the daycare centers, and I think we specifically asked about that, but we'll go into that later. That's fine. And there's also another school that's now opened across the West Side Highway. Is it PS 150? That will probably need to come use our space. It's right across the street from the Battery Park Garage, pretty much, and they have no open space.
PS 150.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Justine, we reached out to PS 150. Nico Victorino and I had a couple of nice
excellent.
conversations. We had some opportunity to speak, and then he got pulled, I think, into like a fire drill or something like that. But we are in contact with 150. I don't know if anything happened in the interim while I was out, but we have been in touch with 150. And Nico, as you know, has the long history of 276, so he's very familiar with the space.
Yes, no, definitely he has. He's got familiarity with both places. That's great. I think we should reach out also to the daycare centers because they do need the open space. And there are some people who have specifically come forward. Jennifer Jones, I think, is the head of that Montessori school, and she was very vocal about wanting open space and access to open space. And I think they don't even go to, I think they go to pre-K, and as does the Battery Park Day Nursery. And then the school, I'm going to say it's in the Cove Club, but I might be wrong. I don't know the name of it. But those are at least three that I know of. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to call on Tammy and then Eric.
Justine, as is my custom, I'm actually going to ask that you call on Eric and then Brittany in the public, and then I'll go last.
Thank you. I didn't see Brittany, but thank you. Perfect. Go ahead, Eric, and then we'll call on Brittany.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. We brought this up before, and I'm still vocal, and I do not care for this. Reducing that 30-foot walkway to 12 feet. I mean, this path is beautiful. This path is useful, and you had said that, we have to do something to bring people to space. There's people in the space that are using the space and walking through the space, and now that Wagner Park is closed, a lot more people are walking up there, and it's not like we don't have things down here. Statue of Liberty, Battery Park, that are bringing tourists and people down here. People come down here for the 9/11 lights and take pictures. Some people come down here to look at the World Trade Center and take pictures, and now the trees are blooming. We don't need people to bring people down here. They're already here. And I talked to the principal at my child's school, TLE, which I use this path to cross the highway because it's a nice path that lets kids run, and I don't have to worry that they could run into the bike path because there's a nice little barrier there. A lot of parents use this. I talked to the principal. I think her name is Jessica. I forget. I should remember this. I take her there every day. And they don't care for this. They like the open space. They don't need this nice good space now that Wagner Park is gone to be reduced to something. Especially if you're going to bring like something in to entice kids. I've said this before. There's a park, north of there that's contained with a fence. I'm not in favor of this at all. That's all I got.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, I haven't even gotten to my opinion yet, but thank you. Betty? Oh, no, sorry. Betty, if you can wait, let's call Brittany and then Betty. Is that okay? Betty, is that all right with you? Okay, thank you. Because I had said that. Brittany, we're taking you out of turn, so you're unmuted. So go ahead and speak, Brittany.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great, thanks. Hi, thanks so much. I liked Eric's Michigan State sweatshirt. That was one that I like, being from Michigan. But second, I'm not going to comment on opinions of whether it should be or not be. Just want to echo, Justine, what you said as talking to nursery schools. The learning experience that Eric mentioned, Pine Street School, Battery Park Montessori, Battery Park Nursery School, etc., is really important. I'd be remiss not to say that I still think that we should give due consideration to the alternate design that keeps the green space at Wagner Park instead. I think that there's a greener, more eco-friendly option out there that still would allow the park to stay open and available to the community, so we don't have this problem of a lack of green space. I think that we should still consider that. On this particular design, just a few more call outs. I don't know what the surface is, the blue surface is, but just be cognizant if a kid falls on that, if it's something that will scrape knees. You want to think about kids playing sports and being active and running around and tripping. And is it a surface that, will be painful if they fall? And then the other thing is if people are expected to play ball or near any of the bikes, some netting or something that's going to keep kids safe, keep the balls in, keep them from running into the street, etc. Just think about that as well. Thank you. That's it.
Thanks, Brittany. Appreciate it. Good points all. Betty?
As of yesterday.
Yes, thanks. I'm going to take it from a slightly different direction. I'm going to mimic a lot of what Eric said in terms of transportation. I'll give it some leeway to take a look at it when things are in place, by all means. So one of my interests would be how often or how frequent is the plan to reassess it as you look at the increase in pedestrian use? Because where is the priority going to be and when is it going to be rebalanced is a big issue more than anything else for me. So the plan to monitor the pedestrian volume and use is important. I'm also very concerned about it's difficult to roll over any surface. So while I hear some people talking about they want more protection for their kids.
Oh, what happened? You cut off.
Hold on for a second.
You went mute. You muted yourself.
Betty, I accidentally unmuted you. I'm so
Sorry.
sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. So people who use mobility devices, there's a lot of resistance when you add surface covers. So I'll be very interested in testing out, and I hope you've already had people who use wheelchairs and walkers test out your surface. And because the resistance is a big barrier to that. And so I understand the push-pull of for kids and scraped knees, they want it thicker. For me, I want it as thin as possible. I work hard enough to be able to move along, and people who are propelling manually, it's way harder for them. So I'm concerned about the resistance, and I want to make sure that was looked at and continues to be looked at. I want to know about, yes, they talk about they don't want the kids to stray, so put some kind of barriers up. I'm going to mimic it from the other side. I agree with them, but for the opposite reason. When I'm walking, I don't really want balls rolling around. So anything that has any kind of ball use, it's got to be completely contained within a space that no balls can roll out where pedestrians are walking, because they can trip. On the other hand, it can't be too big a barrier because pedestrians have to be able to flow into the play space as much as the play people are going to want to move into pedestrian space. So that's going to be a real challenge because sometimes pedestrians tend to walk side by side versus single file or double file. So they pretty quickly take up a pretty big width. And I've had that problem in the past where I can't even get by people. This was before we were sharing any of the space. So I foresee as tourist counts go up, this is going to be a real issue and needs to be monitored because I don't have the answer either. And also, if a surface is down, how is it going to be adhered to the ground? Because I don't want people's toes catching on the edges. There are people like me who can't even feel it. And that's not unusual with elders. Yes, I can't walk anymore, but I went through the phase before I lost my ability to walk. So there can't be any kind of trip hazard at all, which is going to be a challenge if you have to pull it up every night. That's another issue. And also how to alert low vision pedestrians. There are going to be surface changes because they really need to know that and especially be worried about the edges for them as well. Again, I'm not an expert, so I have no advice on that. So yes, how they're anchored, how there's warnings about them, how they're low enough that they don't work as barriers for people who have assistive devices. Those are some of the questions I want looked at. Thanks.
So much, Betty. I'm going to ask a question to Varun based on what Betty was saying. My assumption was the 12-foot walkway that they're keeping was going to be the same as it is right now. So there will be no change whatsoever, no change in surface. But going to what Betty is saying, if you need to go, like, whether it's me walking or Betty, or me pushing a stroller or a wheelchair or Betty with her scooter, having to go over a bump to get out of the walkway into the space, if it's crowded, whatever, there should be some clear demarcation, basically. And either you can or you can't get over. And a lot of what she was saying about keeping it separate makes sense because you want to make sure that people know the walkway is for people who are walking. And one good way to do that is have different color, have a different partition or something like that. And then you have to be careful. If you make it only like an inch, people are going to fall and trip over it. If you make it too high, you're blocking views. So those are things we need to talk about, right? And then with the balls, that's a very important point because I know we had that issue with the ball field, the play area, you call it, by West Thames Park, when the kids were playing there and playing soccer until the BPCA added an extra level of fencing. The balls were getting kicked over the fence and into the street, and it was a bit of a nightmare because you had the kids of any age and all ages running into the streets. You still do, but less so. People are now much more aware. Anyway, thank you. So Tammy, I'm taking you at your word. You want to go last? I'm going to let Jeff go. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. I mean, I kind of like the concept of the pre-phase one because I view it as kind of a trial and error concept. I mean, when this space was originally designed 15 years ago or so, at that time, the community board wanted a lot more activation in the area than we ended up with. Now that it's been built the way that it is, lots of people like it the way that it is. I like it the way that it is too, and I understand the points that that Eric was making. But I think this is, it's an opportunity to respond to. There's always been a community need for more active space, and I think it's important to have reached out to the schools in the after-school program, and I think the comment about the middle schoolers needing a place to eat lunch and so forth, rings true to me. I think it would be good to reach out to the preschools as well, although most of them are quite a distance away, and preschoolers don't travel that far. With 2 and 3-year-olds, they do go outside, but not very, very far. But then kind of the nice thing about pre-phase one is that it's inherently temporary and gives us an experiment. Is that kind of activation successful or not? Is 12 feet wide enough or not? So I certainly think it's an interesting idea, and just speaking for myself, I wouldn't mind seeing it come to fruition. But I think at the end of the day, it's kind of what does the community want with this space? And I think it's important to get the views of the community. I don't have any personal preference that it be one way or the other than I think it's good to be responsive to community needs. That's it.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that. Yeah, I kind of agree with that sentence too. I think that you raised a good point. Having it be a pre-activation gives us a chance to weigh in. So I would ask Varun and Mimi and Nick, of course, because you can always come back. If you'd come back and let us know whether it's going to be next month. I'm not sure when you want to start this, but if it's going to be between now and next month, come back next month. If it's going to be between now and June, come back after it's had some time of being in existence. And let's talk about it again and see what the community is saying. People may look at it and say, oh, this is great or not. And I would be very concerned and interested to see how Betty feels and other people with strollers, anybody who's mobility impaired, and especially making sure the lights are on at night. Because if the space is taken down at night, that's great. But we want to make sure that the tables aren't going to go away, right? You're going to leave the picnic tables there. So you want to make sure it's a safe space. Lucian, your hand is raised. I will let you and Tammy fight out who goes next.
I just want to let you know that you have 2 members of the public. With their
Hands
up.
raised. Perfect. Okay. I see Maureen and Barbara Island. Tammy, let them go first. All right. Let's do Maureen first, then Barbara. Thank you, Lucian. I didn't see that.
Thank you, Lucian. Appreciate that. And Justine, just to pick up on what you said, I'm a resident there in that section of Battery Park City, and I would agree with Eric in principle about his general concerns about activating the space in this way. But if this is a temporary situation and it's a chance to kind of send up a test balloon, then what do we do or what are the plans around potential noise abatement issues? As the weather gets warmer, when in Wagner Park, this was a natural place, those picnic tables for people to have parties, not just in the daytime, but also in the evening when it is separated from residential spaces. In this situation, this will be right next to residential spaces. And so noise abatement becomes an issue, and safety, both for the people who are choosing to gather and celebrate and party in that area, and for those who transverse that area to walk their dogs or to get back and forth to their homes in the evenings. What are the plans there?
Can you answer that or have any idea about it, whether or not that would be considered a park space that the ambassadors would be patrolling regularly and having a sign there?
Yeah, Justine and team, I can weigh in. So yes, for the purposes of our kind of activating the space and making it, it's already something that we maintain, obviously, but to the extent that we're going to be putting a treatment down there and tables, then the same would apply as anywhere else in Battery Park City. So if there are folks that are kind of breaking the park's rules or not respecting others, the same process would apply, whereby you call 212-945-SAFE, which is the ambassador number, 24/7. The command center is actually in very close proximity, but by phone or email, ambassadors can respond and let folks know that obviously they need to conduct themselves in a civil manner. I certainly think that that's a fair concern. Certainly, as the weather gets warmer, generally, folks are generally out later and enjoying public spaces in the main. But it is a very good point that this is closer to the front parts of the residential buildings than certainly Wagner is, which is set back a bit and further.
Nick, thank you for explaining that. Is there a cutoff time where people have to stop gathering in the evenings like that in public spaces, or can they potentially enjoy their evening well into the wee hours?
It's a good question. I think a lot of it probably depends on the actual, like the parks. So technically the parks close. I believe it's 1 a.m.
No, I think they closed is it 1? I thought they closed at 10. All right, 1.
It's in our parks rules. I'll have to check it. Don't quote me chapter and verse. But like anything else, if I am, let's say I live in the north end of the neighborhood and I am walking my dog on the hard surfaces, of course, because no Battery Park City residents only keep their dogs not on the grass on the hard surface. If
Absolutely.
I'm walking my dog through Rockefeller Park on a path at 2 a.m., I'm just walking my dog. I mean,
Yeah.
technically, yeah, the park's closed. I'm just walking my dog. I'm not throwing a party there. So there's always, I think, a bit of judgment that goes into that. For this particular space, though, it is a good question. It's not a park in the traditional sense that we think of, but it is certainly a public space, and I think for those purposes it count as kind of park space within Battery Park City. So it's a good point, and I think like anything else, we would need to make sure that we're monitoring it, especially as it ramps up.
Yeah.
And be able to kind of, I hate to use the word, but kind of throttle back or throttle forward, right? If we see, I'm not saying it's going to happen, if we see that the table's a real problem, then we have the ability to scale back. That's kind of the beauty of it beauty of having it be a kind of a temporary space or a temporary activation that we can scale back if people are unfortunately taking advantage. And if people love it and everyone is respectful of one another, then perhaps there's an ability to kind of build on that and enhance it. But certainly good points to keep in mind as the weather gets warmer generally. But
Nick, do you
with
mind if I
particular to
interrupt
this,
on this?
yeah, go ahead. Is that Tammy?
Yeah, it is. I
Tam.
apologize. But
Go
the
ahead.
park rules are that the person's parks are open 6 a.m. to 1 a.m.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Recall it, yeah.
unless open hours are posted by a park sign differently. So we would be asking as the community board to come up with different park hours for this space to protect the residents, because this was not designated as an activation space in the last 12 years or since Pawtucket was started. And there is an ability for you to do that.
Yeah.
So that would be a question that I would ask to help with the quality of life issues, is to create hours of operations for this and have those hours enforced, not by the public who have to call the PEPs, whatever you want to call them, allied ambassadors, but have that be on a, if they're no longer patrolling through Wagner and other spots, they should be patrolling through here to be able to secure the timing of whatever the new operational hours are there, because it is not tenable to have things open and people gathering and shouting at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Makes sense. That
Like
makes
we
sense.
do for events, right? We don't have large
Yeah.
events that go, ideally should not be going much beyond, like in the summer, maybe it's a little later, 9 or 10, but it's not much later than that. So what would the idea be from the board? You don't have to let me know now, but in
But I'm
terms of the
thinking-
time we'd want it to wind down each evening.
So Nick, let me just tell you, I believe the playground outside my building here, so West Thames Park and the West Thames Playground, it
I know
closes
it.
at 10. They kick the kids out at 10. They also
Okay.
kick kids that are older than 12 out during the day, but that's another story. But anyway, I think that 10 p.m. would be good. And I also agree with what Tammy was saying and what Maureen is kind of getting to when she brought the point up. I think we need to have a kind of a routine walkthrough, especially at the beginning of it all, where the ambassadors are rolling through. And I think it needs to be more frequent than every half hour. And I know, Patrick, you don't like being pinned down for very smart reasons. You don't want people knowing who's going to be where at what time. And so that makes sense. But I'd like to have a constant roll through, because it takes people time to move. And so I know when I've given up calling for the parks violations when there are dogs in on the AstroTurf or in the basketball courts, because by the time the people show up, meaning the ambassadors show up, even though they're right out in my building, it takes them a good 5-10 minutes. The people are gone, or they see them coming and they disappear. But it's frustrating.
Justine,
So
let's
I'd
let
rather have
Barbara
them walk
go
through.
and Maureen
Yeah.
finish. And then I have a couple more updates,
And
please.
Betty just raised her hand as well. So, but let's go. So go ahead, Maureen. Are you done?
No, I'm done. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Justine. Thank you, Nick.
Good points all. All right. Wait, Barbara, you disappeared. Oh, there you are. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead. If you can unmute Barbara, and then we'll jump to Mary Ann, then Betty, then Tammy. And maybe Tammy will be the last, because we've been talking about this now for longer than I expected.
I'll go on the first round, so people who go around for the second round, go
Okay.
after me.
Okay, so after Betty, you go
Okay.
after Mary Ann then.
So
But
just
Barbara, speak.
to just throw in also that you know, this street has very high-end condo owners. The look and feel should be reminiscent of Battery Park City, Wagner Park, and the surroundings. And throwing this bright blue commercial feel on the granite just doesn't bode well with the atmosphere of Battery Park City that we want to try to convey as the best place to live in Manhattan. This strip of gaming areas opposed to the walking path, we need to also remember that by the playground and the lawn, that is, the sidewalk there is split into two areas. You can go east and west. East of the playground, there's a walkway under the trees, and west between Liberty Court and the playground. So that is, you need to double count those peoples because they converge into the parkway there. And again, on the gaming in the playground, balls rolling into the biking area could be very dangerous, as well as into the traffic. And I didn't see on the display, where is the city bike station? Because with the city bikes where they're sitting right now, promotes those bike riders to pedal on the pathway, not the bike path. And also motorized scooters have the same tendency to use that area. So appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Can Varun answer that question of how it relates to the bike path, the city bike station, and the access and egress?
Yeah, currently the city bike station is further south to where we are working. We haven't
Farther
done
south or
anything.
farther north?
I think it's south.
It's definitely further south, Varun. This area that we're looking at only goes between Battery Place and Third Place. So it doesn't go as far north as the play space.
Okay, so sorry, Mimi, you're saying it's further south, right? To our
Yeah,
side.
south and a little to the east. We're definitely avoiding that any interaction with the bikes. And we had also spoken, and this came up with a number of the people we spoke to, about adding signage, directing bikes to the Empire Trail, because it's an issue even without any activation of this space. Bikes using the pedestrian area is something that we want to discourage.
Yeah, to answer your question, Tammy, I don't think we have, at least until this point, we have identified like precisely the signage and things to discourage people from riding their bikes there, but something we can certainly look at.
Barbara, you done?
I think Barbara took her hand down.
Yeah, I think she's done.
Okay, so I think I'm next, right?
Yes, and then Marianne will go, and then Betty.
Okay. So Nick, the other parts about the signage that are going to be really important to be needed there is the no smoking rules, and especially with the situation that we have with the illegal tobacco store that's already popped up both on Washington Street, on the other side of West Street, as well as in Battery Park City. Smoking is supposed to be prohibited in all public areas within any park.
Yep.
Except and including marijuana. So it would be good to make sure that those signs are posted there when you're working on that, to ensure that that does not become a pit stop for that.
Good.
And in terms of, I'm a little concerned by what you're talking about stage and performance in that space in terms of hours and whether or not that would be staying or not. So for example, if you're setting up a small stage for a little mini performance that'll be the following day, then it's out there during, an overnight. I have concerns about all of those kinds of things. and getting it and how that'll affect the people who live next door or are working. For example, if you've worked from home people, which is, more of a newer nuance than it used to be, the having a concert outside their window may not necessarily be the most viable thing to being productive at the office. So just making sure that you have lots of communication for anything that goes with that and anything like that. And then obviously no posters, advertising, I'd hate to see it to become a place that you end up then having a shawarma cart parked next door or a whatever cart it is in that space, because it becomes that. And then lastly, one of my concerns that kind of echoes where Eric is on this, as much as I really do think that it could be an amazing trial, I have extraordinary concerns about the people who teach their kids to ride bikes in that area. And I'm talking about the toddlers and the little kids who learn. My own kids learned to ride their bike over there because it has a gentle slope. It's a nice large space. There was space to navigate around pedestrians, to not have an intersection, and quite frankly, as an adult, to be able to ride along next to the bike in a nice open way where the Esplanade is too crowded and the streets are not safe. So I'm not 100% sure activating all of that space from first to third or from the tip to all the way up to third is actually the best balance that we can be looking at for the neighborhood. And that is just something to think about as we're looking at it, is how much space is left for the pedestrians, for, the small people who tend to need a lot more space and don't, much to Betty's point, where she says, kids and balls pop out of spaces. I mean, I can't, that's about as accurate as you can get. They're sort of like, they just bounce everywhere. So making sure that it's not too much of a pinch point, and I don't know if 12 feet's enough. I think I have major concerns with that. I don't know how Varun wants to take a look and reimagine, or maybe it's in sections instead of one long section. So you have a section with some picnic tables, and then you back it up and there's open sections, and then there's another section with the other things you were looking at, somehow to find a way to find a balance between it all, because there is no way that you can make up for the loss of Wagner. And while this is an interesting new activation, I actually don't look at it as a replacement for Wagner, because you can't get to that point. I think it's just a new activation that will potentially look at the pluses and minuses once Wagner reopens. So those are all my comments. I'm not the engineer. I looked to Varun to figure out, how that could possibly happen with better balance. And thank you.
Thanks, Tammy, and thanks for being patient. All right, Mary Ann,
Oh,
and then
and,
Betty.
and lastly, Nick, welcome back.
Oh, yeah,
You
definitely
missed
welcome
you
back.
missed a heck of a lot, and poor Varun's probably sick of us. So
To
welcome
think
back.
what I would have missed, thank you for holding out until I returned. I appreciate it. And
Go
thank you.
ahead, Mary Ann.
I want to comment on the concept of closing areas of the park at earlier times. I can understand closing a playground that's meant for children, so adults aren't in there at late hours. But I mean, if we're going to talk about closing a part of Pataki Way, there are people who live over the Esplanade who also are bothered by noise on occasion. And I think we really have to look at the entire neighborhood if there's going to be a need to test closing areas at an earlier time.
Should be clear with my saying that, because you make a good point. I'm not saying close off the whole
No, I
walkway.
don't mean close it, but officially say the park is closed, don't hang out here because it's 10:15.
People should be able to walk back and forth. The 12 feet
People
of
can walk
walkway should always be
Right.
open 24/7 like it is now.
Right. But if there's a gathering of people that's noisy, no matter where they are, they should be told, you're too noisy, move along. And that could be done at I would think legally, any time of day or night. if there's a really raucous, disruptive group that's gathered. Tell me if I'm wrong, but, so instead of, setting earlier official closing times for various locations, it's got to be looked at totally, because otherwise there'll be people coming forward wanting it here, there, and everywhere. And that's just going to create a big management problem to, manage the people who just keep hanging out and making noises. Thank
Well,
you.
No, thank you, Marianne. And as somebody who would hang out in the park outside on the tables,
Right.
I didn't have to wait for someone to tell me to leave. It was the rats that came out. It was their time. So anyway, go ahead, Betty.
Thanks. I was going to just originally speak about the time of 10 p.m. and say that with open dining, well, the rules are not finalized at all. Discussions really had hinged around 10 p.m. and people still were concerned that was too noisy for activity on the sidewalk and streets. So I would certainly make 10 p.m. the absolute latest. And realize that there's a lot of blowback in a lot of areas, even to open dining at those hours. So expect that from the local residents that are very close, because that's exactly who you were hearing it from with the open dining program.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'm going to wrap this up. I think those are good points. Yeah, I mean, I'm on your side with that one, Betty, because I think that it makes sense to close things down, except the walkway has to be 100% open because, of course, it does.
Pedestrian.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's, that's as it is now, and nothing stops anybody from making noise now. But anyway, put that aside. Let's shut this one down. Varun and Mimi, thank you. I would love to know, so a couple of questions logistically. When are you going to start doing this? Do you have a date?
We're trying to get our procurement finalized. So the intent initially was that we're already in April. We wanted to get something done by middle of May. But, I think we can keep you posted on as things progress.
That's great. What I would say then, if the middle of May, you're thinking maybe come back in June, July, the latest, if you guys both come back and just give us an update. In the meantime, we'll keep the lines of communication open. And Patrick, I know you're here listening. I really do think that once it's open, we should get a regular schedule of people walking through, ambassadors walking through. Mimi
Yeah.
and Varun, thank you so much. All right, maybe we
you.
pull up the.
Thank you. Thank you all.
No, thank you. Appreciate the feedback and appreciate your coming back, and most especially appreciate the listening to the community and trying to incorporate what you heard. The one thing I will say, and homework for you guys, is can you please reach out to the daycare centers?
Absolutely. Happy to.
So between now and then, please reach out and just get a sense from them.
Yep, we can do that, Justine, certainly.
Yes,
Justine,
thank
I
you.
do suspect, based on my experiences with the pre-K center at 276, that
Mhm.
it is too open of a space, too close to two different streets to be very, very viable for kids of those ages. The containment within
It's
West
difficult. Yeah,
End is
is
a
much better.
significantly better opportunity. Yeah,
No, I
which
totally
is
agree.
why, yeah.
I would love to have them say so that then again, as we're talking about, we're going to get to talking more about community engagement and who the stakeholders are, who need to be spoken to. It just is a box to check, if nothing else. You spoke to them, you can say, yeah, they said they don't use it or they don't plan to. So don't worry about them, whatever their comments are. But it's good to at least ask them. And then you get into the habit of asking them for different things. So thank you. But that's a good point, Tammy. All right, next, the state of small businesses in Battery Park City discussion. All right, so before we move forward with this one, I know a lot of people have a lot of really angry, sad, frustrated thoughts. I want to keep everything civil, first of all. Secondly, I would like to keep this limited to a half hour. I want to get ideas. I want to have discussions about what we think. What do we want? What are we sad to see go? Let's just be a little bit of a venting session. That's fine. But Lucian and I spoke before this meeting, and he is looking and getting information, and we're hoping to get someone come back someone from the Small Business Association come to our next meeting. We want to try to see if we can get some of the small businesses in Battery Park City to show up to represent themselves before we have an issue with them. And also to get some statistics as to what is the deal? Are the storefronts in Battery Park City consistently empty across the board, or if it's different someplace else? And in the scheme of it all, let's just see what they have to say. But so right now, we'll keep it to a half hour, but please pay attention to the agenda coming forward. So this is not the end of the discussion. I see Mary Ann has her hand raised. And I
If
don't
I
know-
could, thank you. If I could just start by suggesting again what I've suggested before on this topic is that we set up some sort of subgroup to really sit down and go through all the things that are missing, that people are longing to have back. Because we could devolve into just venting about things that are gone and not here. I get a lot of feedback from seniors. And, you know, seniors are people who have a lot more experience walking into an establishment, looking at things, sizing them up, choosing a purchase. Online does not work so well. And so there's a lot of frustration with just the trend of the way things are going. So first to get a working group on what's missing and somehow throw that out for, you know, requesting participation. The second thing I want to say is that if the authority, you know, is going to live up to their mission statement of, you know, making us have a good, I forget all the nice words, but, you know, a nice community and a good place to live and so
How
on.
about a balanced mix of retail?
Well, fine. So, you know, we know why it's not working that way now. You know, we don't need lengthy emails to tell us what we know. What we need is to break out of that into what can be done. And so when people have come to some sense of what's missing, to then start meeting with whoever is designated from the authority. How can we find a space and populate it with some of the things that we need? The money that is excess at the end of every year that gets handed over to New York City or the state, perhaps could be utilized to rent some space and have little pop-ups or, you know, however it might work, to allow these sorts of businesses to be there. We tend to get what will be able to pay rents to the landlords. And obviously they're going to, you know, bring in who they want, who's going to pay the rent that they want. But we have so many dry cleaners in the South End is the best area for me to address. So many dry cleaners, so many nail salons. And we don't have a stationery store like what Gateway used to have before Obone Pan went in. You know, just a store where you can get your odds and ends. So that's how I would like to suggest we address this, to find out what we need. I've got an email from a senior with 5+ things she thinks is missing. But to get that pulled together and then to problem solve and find a way to get space that could be utilized.
Marianne, could you bring up a really good point? So, you know, as the BPCA knows, and I'm quoting it from their strategic plan about that their plan calls for a balanced mix of retail. And to me, that explicitly calls for and contemplates a role for the authority in creating such a mix. They had that role when they put in and required a movie theater, when they required the Goldman Sachs to have the movie theater, when they and wouldn't let them close it down. They were involved in that. And a very successful in terms of engagement was when they negotiated with Lefrak and the Catholic Church about trying to keep the St. Joseph's Chapel in Gateway Plaza. And I'm going to say, I've said it before, I've said it in these meetings before, the authority was not at fault. The authority came forward and they actually got Lefrak to the table. They got Lefrak to agree to the old contract. It was the Catholic Church that said, yeah, no, thanks, but no thanks, and they walked away. But Lefrak was working with them. The authority negotiated a deal, got everybody in the room. And that is the role that I see the authority playing. Could they force the hand of Lefrak? No. Could they force the Catholic Church? No. Could they force Picasso or the owner of Picasso, there's the middleman? Could that happen? No. However, they can get involved and say, hey, let's be a mediator. Let's see what's going on here. What can we do to make this work? What do you need to make this work? How can this happen? And that's, and I honestly don't know because I was not in the room with Dennis Mihil when he was speaking with Lefrak and Lefrak's office. I was not there. I was there when Lefrak spoke with the Catholic Church, but I was, and Dennis Mihil will talk to me after the fact. But you guys have a position here. You have power and you have ability to do something more than what you're doing now. You can help. You cannot guarantee any outcomes, but you can help. And that's where I'm coming from. And that kind of goes with what Mary Ann said. So then I kick it to you, Madam Chair. Can we have a subcommittee that talks about it in Battery Park City, but also outside of Battery Park City? Because it's not just Battery Park City. I think we'll learn that in from talking to Lucian. I think we'll learn it in our next meeting or the June meeting, if I'm counting months right.
Here's how this goes. If you're talking about programs and anything that could have the Battery Park City Authority activate and do things.
No.
Right, that should be in the Battery Park City Committee because it deals not with neighborhood, it deals with the Battery Park City Authority as an agency. So any of the do's and don'ts for whatever they could or can't do through creating a grant program, through any kind of legislation or anything like that, any ideas that you have that you can work with the Battery Park City Authority through, that goes as a subcommittee here. Greater outside of BPC, but including BPC, in terms of small businesses, we do have a small business task force that Colin was running for a while. It hasn't met. We can certainly reconvene and reshuffle who's on it and who wants to do things. There are parameters that go with everything. We know we have a bid, an amazingly successful bid in the neighborhood with the Downtown Alliance. It is one of the top in the nation of business improvement districts as it goes, but they are limited in their scope and scale based on the assessments they do for their buildings. So we did reach out and ask them about whether or not they could fiscally help businesses in Battery Park City, and they fiscally cannot. It is against their mandate and charter. They can help with marketing and websites and other kind of programming and things like that, but they can't do anything else. So there's that to think about. And, the Battery Park City Authority has, for those who have been around for more than 5 years, pre-Mihil, I think, there was an audit done of the BPCA about where their money goes, and they got very tightly reined in on where money goes.
Yeah, I do recall that.
So that's
have to be careful. Yeah, that's a good point too. But again, I'm not so sure I'm talking about money.
There are
Maybe it
rules
is.
and regs. I mean, and I think on a larger portion, we do need to take a look at, I'd love to see a small business zone in Lower Manhattan, an incubation zone, and how we could get that set up and what kind of incentives we can do to encourage small businesses. We have way too many storefronts that are empty, and it does not balance the needs for the quality of life for the people who live here. So think about through where you want to go, and we can go through there. If there's, conversations and small meetings to be had with the Battery Park City Authority about potentials based on what they are able to do, or, including our elected officials to see what kind of legislative moves might need to be made. That's one thing for the Battery Park City Authority Committee. And then there's another one that goes into LZE, which is land use zoning and economic development. And
Makes
Mary Ann,
sense.
I'm happy to have you on both.
Yeah, no, we should look to do it because there may be, what my understanding is that for Battery Park City, we have our own set of like little rules here. And part of it is that there's just gaps. As you said, the LMDC cannot come and help us or help our businesses. I mean, like you said,
Downtown Alliance.
Downtown Alliance, sorry. Downtown Alliance, thank you. So, you know, the Battery Park City Authority is our bid, which is a big joke because of course that's not their role. The joke is it's not their role, but that they are, but that's who we have. So that's part of why I look to you, Nick, and I say, come on, let's do this.
It is
I'm looking to
within
you
their
to do
mission.
everything.
It is within technically their mission about providing a balanced community.
Yeah.
So if you look in the mission.
It is there. I did read it from the mission. So, that
Justine, I
might
have
be-
when we're ready, I have and I won't belabor, but I have a short kind of deck that I can go through, which I think speaks to a lot of these
Because you
points.
do have some ideas, and I know from the email. Let's let Barbara Ireland go first, and then you're up, Nick, to show
Okay.
your deck, because you've got some suggestions and places for people to go. But I think I want more than that. I want you guys in the room with them.
Yeah, let's
That's what I want. I want someone holding their
Partner
hand
up.
because some of these people are scared. Barbara, go ahead.
So in downtown Manhattan, not in Battery Park City side, but the FiDi Tribeca area, there are local store owners that are pharmacies, delis, etc., that we would need in our local strip down here. And many times they could be a call out to those vendors, those shop owners, to see if they would do a pop-up here. Maybe there would be an incentive for a build out because that's one of the costs in order to start up a store. We've got many organizations to help small businesses. We could call on them to do a canvas out, somebody that already knows downtown. They can cross-utilize their merchandise in their downtown stores, including the Battery Park City pop-up. And maybe it's that. Maybe it's being able to use one of these storefronts that's vacant as a pop-up like they do in other parts of the city. Just an idea.
I think it's a great idea. I think, Marianne, we should get together, Barbara, Marianne, and we should do a meeting, and anybody else. I mean, you know, let me know. And let's put something together and talk to Nick, because I think that's step one, but then we also need to talk to Colin, because I think it's bigger than just us, but it's two functions. Go ahead, Betty.
And Justine, I accidentally lowered Brittany's hand, went up, and I was lowering other hand. So Brittany, put your hand back
So
up. I'm sorry,
after
that was my
Betty,
bad.
put her next. Thank you. Go ahead, Betty.
I was going to add that there are a number of stores that have scaled back, such as Pick a Bagel up here on the north side. It used to be really a full deli, and now it's really just some bagels and not much else. So I wouldn't want any expansion to go into stepping on the toes of the existing ones that have scaled back, but rather also negotiating, maybe restoring some of the things that some of the current businesses have let go. That's all. Thanks.
Agree 100%. Yeah, I definitely don't want Pick a Bagel to go from the north. I'm sad to see it go from the south. All right, Brittany, go ahead.
Thanks. Can you guys hear me? Great. I think Pick a Bagel had some health like violations is what happened with them. I think it was, and they had to go fix it. But a couple things. I like the idea of the pop-up shops, maybe even Pier A, you know, that's sitting empty. Like, could we leverage some of the, you know, some of the real estate that we have and, you know, incentivize? Another idea, and going back, I saw Eric wearing the Michigan State sweatshirt, and being from Michigan, is Detroit. You know, it's a little different, but Detroit had the same problem where they couldn't incentivize businesses to come down to Detroit and stay. And, you know, perhaps it's worthwhile, Nick, for you guys to reach out to some folks, you know, in the government over there and see how they were able to incentivize businesses to come back and stay put, and what kind of levers that they managed to do, because they're bringing back that city and keeping businesses there. So it might be worthwhile to learn from someone who's been through this, and there might be some, you know, interesting ideas to come up with from those learnings as well.
Really good ideas. Thank you, Brittany. All right. Any other hands up that I don't see?
Colin was already on board, by the way, with reconstituting. So,
Good.
yeah.
Let's reach out to him. That's
Well,
perfect.
we had already talked about it after land use last night. So let's talk about having that dialogue for May and having all the right people in the room.
Perfect. Let's do it.
That doesn't deny the opportunity of the discussion, however, with a small group, with the BPCA for what could be done within the confines of their rules. Welcome back, Nick.
Welcome, Nick.
Glad to be here.
What's worse? That's what I want to know. I think I know the answer still, but we haven't finished the next topic yet. All right, let's move on to the next topic. Oh, wait, I see Jonathan's hand was up. Jonathan, did you want to say something? I will let you speak if Nick unmutes
Yeah.
you.
Please.
And then we'll jump on to the next topic. I said Nick unmutes you. Lucian unmutes you. But I don't see you now. You're gone, so I don't see your hand up anymore. So let's move on to the next topic, Lucian.
I was going to
Oh, your slides. Yes, I'm so sorry.
Justine,
Yes, please.
I worked so hard. I can't even
I
say us.
know.
We.
And I'm pushing you through. I'm
It
sorry.
was a
I
real team effort.
apologize.
No, it's okay. And I will not kind of belabor the point because I think we actually got to a good place and had a really productive conversation here. But just to run through a couple of things, and I will go briefly. But thank you. And a number of you have hit on it already. I know that we had kind of seen some of the emails come across last week. We wanted to come in and make sure we were apprising you of kind of our understanding of the environment out there, what the BPCA's role can be, primarily in a key facilitator role. But as Justine, you and I had discussed, I think there are opportunities for us to, certainly be made aware of what's going on, and to the extent that we want to try to have that thriving retail residential community, that certainly is in keeping with the mission of the Battery Park City Authority. So I begin by saying, obviously, we never like to see storefronts close, of course. On a personal note, those who know me, every Friday of my professional career is Friday Pizza Fun Day, and I always get pizza, and it's always been Picasso. So when I was away and I saw the news, it was, it hit me personally as well. I really did like the place. I like the people there. And I think it's fair to say that small businesses are a cornerstone of what Battery Park City is. They provide goods and services, and they bring us together, and they enliven our streetscape. So we are in agreement there. And as many of you may recall, Lucian, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, when we did our engagement sessions back in 2019, when we were developing our first strategic plan, it's called the Battery Park City Resilience Action Plan, but it's our strategic plan, we had in there what we were hearing, some of that same messaging, right? That we wanted to promote businesses that are diverse and create social benefit and provide services to meet the needs of our community. And we said we would do that, and that's a page from our strategic plan. Justine, I think that you might have been cribbing that as well in some of your notes, which is fine. We said we do that in two ways. We want to analyze neighborhood retail landscape, and we wanted to explore new approaches to promote existing businesses and attract new entities that support our neighborhood needs. So that is certainly in keeping with what we were discussing. I will be the first to admit that certainly we had some initial attempts to get this project off the ground pre-COVID. But obviously, as a result of the pandemic, a lot of things were halted and slowed. And then obviously the opening back up of downtown, even still as we sit here today, while certainly doing well, is still continuing. You saw that in some of the recent Downtown Alliance reports about the state of Lower Manhattan retail in 2022 and elsewhere. You can run to the next slide there, Lucian. What we have been doing since then, though, is we have been focused on leveraging the professional expertise of organizations who specialize in this type of thing, including our partners at the Downtown Alliance. They conduct retail analyses and provide support for local businesses. And as Tammy has astutely noted, while Battery Park City is technically outside the Downtown Alliance's catchment area, and assessment dollars can't be used to support Battery Park City initiatives, the Alliance often includes Battery Park City in their analyses. Through private funding, they've done some work with Brookfield, And the Battery Park City Authority, in fact, has a long history of supporting the Downtown Alliance's efforts in areas that impact positively Battery Park City, like, for instance, the expansion of free Wi-Fi in Battery Park City parks, and the Downtown Connection Bus, which is a known favorite. And that also helps get people around from Battery Park City to other areas of downtown that may have that pizzeria that unfortunately has now closed here, but there are other areas of downtown that are still rich in businesses, and to the extent that we can support and aid folks in Battery Park City getting from one place to another, that is something that we work with the Downtown Alliance with as well. But there's also a space here, and I think we talked about this a bit, that we can kind of deepen our existing community ties, right? It's kind of a patchwork. So in addition to our relationship with the community board, we primarily have relationships, obviously, with each of the buildings, the building management firms, condo boards, cultural institutions, etc. I do think there's an opportunity, and perhaps we can discuss this when we get together in a smaller group, of kind of building up that kind of network of contacts in different retail spaces. As some of you may know, this is, as we've been doing our research as well, knowing this, it's not simply that, okay, well, this building is managed by, let's say, Milford, just to pick a name out. So they would have the contact with all the retailers. The retail spaces themselves are oftentimes privately owned and managed. So it's not as simple as saying, we'll just get in touch with the building management or the condo board. In many cases, you have to get to the realtor who knows the space, who has marketed it, who knows what rent it will draw, what the market will bear, and what things may be best to fit in those spaces. So I really do think it, to quote the term, takes a village. It'll be a team effort, but I think there are some real layers and levels of expertise that we can leverage to identify spots, as we know they are either going to close or going to be opening up or looking for business. I think that's where we can put our heads together and see, hey, what is it that the community needs, and try to make sure that we are setting the conditions so that businesses of that type can come into Battery Park City and thrive. Next slide, Lucian, if you don't mind, and I'll wrap this up in the next few minutes, Justine, and thank you. What we do know, and I would say, though, is unfortunately this is a citywide issue. So not to point the finger away, but just for context, I think it is important to know that there are many talented local elected officials that have acknowledged this issue for years and have had a difficult time solving it, not because they're not dedicated or mean well, but because it's a kind of a tough nut to crack. Part of what makes it so hard is that under New York City law, as you may know, there's no protection for businesses with regard to rent increases like there are protections for residents. Commercial rent regulation, if it were to exist in the city, would be in the purview of the local legislature, the New York City Council. And in fact, there have been several proposed laws over the years, none of which have kind of been realized or passed into law. The latest proposed legislation to that effect is Intro 93 of 2022. You see there's a screen grab there on the right side. I can get you the full chapter and verse there, Lucian, although I'm sure you know this. It's the Commercial Rent Stabilization Act, CRSA. And essentially, for want of a better term, what it would do is to create basically a commercial rent guidelines board. So it would have the mayor establish a 9-member rent guidelines board for commercial entities to set the annual percentage increase allowed for rents when a commercial lease expires. I think it's Councilmember Ayala who introduced it, and I think our fine Councilmember Christopher Marte, I believe, is a co-sponsor on that as well. There's also, as we know, a city agency whose mission specifically is to develop, these kinds of programs to help small businesses, the Department of Small Business Services. It's a priority of the mayor as well. You see there on the left, just earlier this year, Mayor Adams and SBS Commissioner Kim launched the New York City Small Business Opportunity Fund, which is, as I understand it, the largest public-private loan fund directed at small businesses in the city's history. And it offers up to $250,000 to small eligible businesses with market-leading interest rate of 4%. So these are some of the things and programs that are out there. The last thing, next slide, if you don't mind, Lucian, and I'll wrap up. It's not only a citywide issue, but if you go to the next slide there, Lucian, it's also across the the state and the country. And so there's help also at the state and federal levels as well. You'll see a screen grab there from Empire State Development. And what that talks about is the State Small Business Credit Initiative, or SSCBI. This was part of the American Rescue Plan Act. It was passed by Congress, signed by President Biden, to provide $10 billion to small businesses and empower them to access capital needed to invest in job creating opportunities as the country emerges from the pandemic. So again, these are, I think, a lot of important resources, and kind of trying to bring this back home. I think that, and thank you, Justine and Tammy and the team for bringing this up. I think there is an important facilitator role that we can play. There are things that we can certainly do, and we have done with local businesses before. If there's ideas that we have as a community for, hey, wouldn't it be great if there can be a pop-up, or, not to mix metaphors here, Justine, but hey, if we activate that space that runs from the Battery to Third Place, and there's a want maybe to have a cart with some kind of cool food. Again, I'm not ruling it out. I'm not saying it's happening. I'm saying these are the types of roles that we can play based on what we're hearing from the community, short of kind of putting a thumb on the scale or picking winners and losers in the business space. It's not the authority's role, and we couldn't do that. But to set the conditions, have businesses want to come in, and to also make those connections, I think, for those small businesses and kind of the retailers and other folks who may want to make those connections between various city, state, federal programs and other opportunities available to them. I think there's an important role for us to play. So I won't belabor it too much more, but those are just some of the thoughts I wanted to get across, and we certainly do look forward to working together on this. So thank you.
Sorry, thanks so much, Nick. I appreciate that.
Yes.
I just had to get my computer plugged, otherwise I'm gonna disconnect. No, that
No
was
problem.
helpful, and those were good suggestions. So hopefully, Lucian, we can get that slide presentation and put it up on our website too. So we have access to it, and you should put it on yours, Lucian, the BPCA site, Nick.
Yep.
Because
I'll
this
put, when
way-
I post my report, I'll post this
Yeah.
and the presentation from earlier as well.
Perfect. Yeah, yes, thank you. All right, so next. I'm not missing any hands, right? Jonathan has a hand up. I will call on him now because I thought I saw his hand before. If you unmute Jonathan, then we'll go on to next.
Jonathan, you can unmute.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
You have to unmute me.
You are unmuted.
Oh, hi, guys.
Hear you.
Hey, how
Thank
are
you
you?
very much for doing this. I really appreciate it, Justine, Tammy. So I'm a real estate broker, and I do a lot of real estate down in Battery Park City. And I'll just start with what we really missed when Lefrak renegotiated their land lease, why it wasn't put in their land lease that they have to, I guess, help out the neighborhood. We all know Lefrak's position on real estate. You know, they want to combine, or they want to get the best rents they can. The rest of going down South End Avenue, they're rented. The old pizza place is rented, and then the corner dry cleaner is rented. It's going to be a Chabad. It's going to be a Jewish synagogue.
Battery Park City Chabad, longtime community
Right, they
organization.
took that space.
Brick
Now,
and mortar.
the issue with 2 South End Avenue, we all know the issue with 2 South End Avenue. Between the pilot and the land lease, because a friend of mine is a part owner in that vacant space that used to be the grocery, they can't afford to offer lower leases. They would love to. They own multiple properties around the city, but they can't. The garage closed because they couldn't afford to pay anymore. They just walked away because between the pilot and the land lease. You know, so to say that there's open spaces, a restaurant really can't make money down there because it's not supported by the village. Now, as far as Brookfield is concerned, that we lost the pharmacy, unless Nick knows, nobody will never know why we lost the pharmacy, except the rent. So there's nothing that could be done, unfortunately, by any of these spaces. I mean, there's just, unless Lefrak wants to subdivide and give somebody a lease at, $10,000, I'm just telling you the way it is. It's just not going to happen. That it's very sad. I've been here for since '96, right? And we've had a lot of different stores. And now we're just, unless Nick can cut, those were great ideas, Nick. But unless we can get the major players like Lefrak or Brookfield to play, we're only going to go downhill as far as having spaces. We're lucky we have Inatasso and her coffee shop because 30 Little West, their land lease and their pilot makes it affordable for them to do business there. So it's not just the rent, it's the people that own the small, one person bought Rose out for those spaces from the dry cleaner to the Battery Park City nursery school. That owner gave the nursery school a very fair lease so she could stay there. So that was a good owner, that was fair, that wanted to support the neighborhood. Lefrak has no interest, and Brookfield has no interest in supporting the neighborhood or supporting it the way they do with the arts and the entertainment, which is quite special. I can't complain about that, but by putting a big beer hall on Liberty is not supporting the neighborhood. It's just not. It's supporting themselves, and maybe it'll have a great burger, but it's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for a big space that's going to have a stationery store, it's going to have a drugstore, all the normal neighborhood things, maybe even a fish and a meat store.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Why won't Castamedes be forced to do something at the other end? So I'd love to be on that the committee that you're going to start. I'd love to give my time. But I'm not smart enough to figure a way out to make these big people play ball. They just want their money, and that's just the way it is.
We gotta just keep talking.
Well,
And we'll see what we can do. Yeah, those are good points, Jonathan. Thank you. And yes, of course, Marianne, Jonathan,
thank you.
Barbara, if you
Thank
want
you
to,
for
but
letting
thank
me
you very
speak.
much. No, thank you for speaking.
Okay.
Right. I don't see
Just
any
to-
other. Go ahead, Nick.
I'm sorry, thank you, Jonathan. I know you and I have had a number of lively conversations about that. Just for the record, just so we have it again, and I'm aware about the two South End Avenue, the Cove Club garage, just so we have it here. So I know it's kind of got itself spun up, but ground rent for the Cove Club garage has been roughly the same since 2011. So it hasn't increased appreciably.
No, it
And-
has not, Nick. The
and an
problem is the
escalation
Cove
in
Club-
pilot-
Wait, I gotta say it.
So let me
The
just
Cove Club
finish.
Garage ground rent is too high. That's the problem. You're correct. It has only increased at like 0.5% a
Since
year.
over the last 10 years.
Yeah, so
It's
it's not
still too high
increasing
10 years
really.
ago, but that was his
That's
decision.
it. That's the
And an
problem.
escalation in pilot payments, which, as you know, has nothing to do with Battery Park City.
I said that right away. It's both of
Yeah.
them. It's
know.
both.
I know.
It's both,
Um,
but Nick, it's interesting. I'm sorry, but from
Yeah.
my perspective, I rest my case. Ground rent at the Cove Club is too high. Pilot at the Cove Club is too high, but the ground rent alone is just it's enough
Well,
to make it.
yeah, I
too
mean,
much.
it's a separate conversation, but
It
I
is.
do,
It's not sustainable.
I am not, well, certainly far from the smartest guy in the world. I would be very surprised, however, that the ground rent, the building is going to charge the retail space what they can get from the retail space, irrespective of what
Now they're getting
ground
nothing.
rent is. It's what the market will bear.
Yeah,
No.
no, not really. They have to pay their bills first, and of course
The
they'll go
garage is
for
not paying
more.
ground rent. The garage is paying what it has to pay the building. It's not paying ground rent.
The
building's paying
the garage owned the space, Nick.
Yeah, the garage owns the space.
They
It was
own the
not.
space. Every one of those spaces in 2 South End Avenue are owned by different people. If the
Right, that's what we're
building
saying. It's a
discharges them-
patchwork.
What? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a patchwork, right?
It's a commercial space, but it's a commercial entity that owns that space. Go ahead, Marianne. You're muted, unmute. There you go.
Thank you. In many condo buildings, the developer owns space that they rent out. Are you
Not there,
saying
'cause I
this is
did ask
different
that
at Cove
question.
Club?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ours is a different story,
Okay,
but, in
thank
the
you.
Liberty Court, but no, Cove
So
Club is
it's
different.
And
a lot of
Jonathan,
them are different.
Jonathan, I didn't catch, you said a few interesting, that I thought were interesting things in the beginning when you spoke about spaces that are already rented and that may then be filled. Could you just say where they are unless somebody else, got all that, but
He's muted now again, sorry, but,
Yeah.
we can listen back to the tapes because I think he said, I'm not gonna
said the
guess.
pizzeria has been rented, but I don't know if that means another pizza place is coming.
I think he means, not Picasso, the other one, Benvenuti.
Oh, all right, the one that used to be referred to as
Benvenuti.
Yeah, I think he meant,
Benvenuti.
I assume he meant
That's good
Benvenuti
news. All right,
because
that's something.
something, but yeah, next to the, because I mean, he was talking
And
about that
where's,
building.
where's the Chabad gonna be? What space?
Maybe
Fresh
there.
Cleaners used to be.
Where the
Yeah,
cleaners
it's
used to, thank you,
I
Jeff.
think it's the corner of West Thames and South End Avenue or thereabouts.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
I think that's where it is.
Thank you, good.
All right. Thank you
Um,
all. Let's
that's
move
all.
on to the next topic, please, because it is coming on at 7:40. So now
Okay.
this, yeah, I know, yeah, exactly. This one's gonna be fun. This is gonna be complicated. And let me say that this is not the only discussion we're gonna have about the REACH-specific workshops or the REACHes and resiliency. And I want to be clear that the point of our discussion and possible resolution is we're focusing in our committee not on what Alice is doing in the environmental committee. We are focusing specifically on interactions with the BPCA. We're focusing here on cost, if that's what we want to talk about. Who's paying for this? How is it getting paid? So I do think the relevant questions are, as we look at each option, what is it going to cost? What's the cheaper one? And it doesn't mean we have to always pick the cheaper one that we prefer, but those are relevant concerns. And then how is the engagement between the Battery Park City Authority and the community? What is it that we're talking about? As we learned, and I'm going to say this is how I perceive it, as we learned from Wagner Park, from day one, you guys said you were going to tear down the old building and build a new building. That was on the table from day one, and no matter how many times we said we don't want you to do that, your answer was, thank you for sharing, no. And so there will be things going forward in reaches, the north and the west, where I'm sure we're going to come to an impasse. And at the end of the day, I am at the position to say, okay, well, it's you guys are building it. So when you say no, I mean, we're going to stop fighting with you, but no is no. I'd like to be clearer about when that comes up, although not that there was any surprise for those of us who were engaged all along about the building, because we were always butting heads about it. But again, I want to focus on process, on communication, and just figuring out ways in which we can get more out there. So, Nick, you presented, and you actually have, and I tried to read it, but I only had an hour to read it. But you did have, yeah, it's not enough. That's part of what I had my computer troubles with. But you have some information from the reaches. Let's start sharing it. Do I let you go through with it and go through the slides, or?
No.
Oh,
No.
no,
I
no.
don't know who said no, but it was
No.
Tammy. I'm thinking,
I don't have-
it's
no.
gonna be too long, yeah.
No, I don't have slides on that. I don't
Okay.
think I have slides on that
All right.
tonight.
First of all, Justine, the dialogue today is about engagement, the
Yep.
framework of the engagement, how the engagement worked, what was missing, what was good. All the feedback, obviously the timeline of feedback and things like that, but the specific dialogue about the resiliency steps for each reach will be in a joint meeting next month with Battery Park City and EPC. We haven't figured out how that'll work yet because I have not seen one piece of summary information come from any reach back to the community board in any way. If you saw something today,
I did.
that's
5
brand new.
o'clock.
And
Yeah. So it's there. That's yes, it's there. It's a lot of information.
Uh,
So it's nothing I could digest or could we
Justine,
go through now?
Justine, 5 o'clock on a night of a
No.
meeting is not professional
Agreed.
courtesy.
It agreed because we could not have a full discussion about what was in there. But all right, so
That'll go in May with the EPC committee. Please keep going on the framework of the engagement
all right,
and
framework. We have even with that, we've got different opinions because Jeff and I were talking about it. For me, I appreciated the reaches. I appreciated the multiple conversations and breaking them out. I'm not a fan of having, I want interaction. We had interaction in little groups. We didn't have interactions in big groups. And so I think we're going to need to get to the point where we're going forward and getting more ideas. So what for those people who did not attend any REACH meetings, the basic concept was 3 different options for the most part were presented, split into groups. Each table talked about different things. They asked questions. We got answers. We expressed opinions. And then the Battery Park City Authority did compile it all, but that needs to be shared and put forth in a way that we can all understand. But I'm going to kick to Jeff because he had a different perspective on the meetings. So go ahead.
I actually thought the REACH meetings were quite informative. I was sick with COVID for the first 2, so I missed those, but I went to the second 2. I thought it was very helpful to sit down with drawings and have members of the design team available to answer questions and to take input and have some back and forth dialogue. As many of you know, I also serve on the Gateway Tenants Executive Committee, and we reached out to the authority to ask for a Gateway specific REACH meeting, which was held with the Gateway Executive Committee so that we could focus on the issues with in the neighborhood of Gateway. That was a virtual meeting, but it was basically just like one of the REACH meetings with the same set of people present. And we're going to follow up with a meeting that all Gateway residents can attend that we haven't quite defined the format for yet. I think it's incredibly difficult to get meaningful community input on a project of this magnitude. And I think it's always going to be a trial and error exercise to figure out what's the best way to get meaningful benefit. The only party with a budget to have designers, to have engineers and so forth is the authority. The community isn't going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to designers to come up with an alternative design. And so to get the best result out of something that's being funded by the government, you need to get the community input. And I think the REACH meetings were good in that respect. Could they have interviewed every resident personally and whatever? Yeah, that's theoretically possible. I've been parts of lots of, I lived through the rebuilding of the World Trade Center. I went through lots of those kinds of community meetings. Many of those were in big auditoriums where, you have to sign up for your 2 minutes to speak before the meeting begins. And yeah, you get an input and you hear things, but it's much less meaningful input than the kind of input you can get in one of these sit-down meetings. I think the area that can be significantly improved is the outreach to get people to come to these meetings. It's amazingly how ignorant people are in the neighborhood, notwithstanding the fact that it was blasted all over the broadsheet several times, that it was in the community board newsletter, and that it was in our Tenants Association newsletter, it was in the Downtown Express. You seem to have to be sleeping under a rock not to be aware of it, but nonetheless, very few people were. And so I think it's necessary for the authority, which once again has the budget to do the outreach. Yes, the community board can help by giving contact information and so forth, but we really don't have a budget to be physically doing the outreach. I think each residential building needs its own, outreach from the authority, not just the building management, but the building board, the Building Tenants Association, if it has one, And, you know, the community board can facilitate in giving contact information to the extent that we have it. But I think the contact also has to, or the outreach also has to extend to buildings in Tribeca. And I was sick during those meetings, so I didn't get to witness them firsthand, but I heard that there were people at Independence Plaza that didn't even know that meeting was going on, even though the project was going to be practically right outside their building. And some of the alternatives for that reach would go right up Chambers to Greenwich, and there's residential buildings right there as well. And so I think not just Battery Park City, but all the nearby residential buildings have to be included in the outreach. And I think similarly, you know, the schools need to be reached out to, the school PTAs, Brookfield, Goldman, major commercial tenants. I mean, these are major changes in the look and feel of our neighborhood. There's going to be areas under construction for a couple of years. We really do need to have the input from as many interested people as possible. The one thing I don't favor, though, is slowing down the process. I mean, as it is, construction isn't scheduled to be completed until the end of 2027. And that's if everything goes smoothly, and everything won't go smoothly. So we're talking about 2028, 2029 on the path that we're on. And I think resiliency is an urgent matter. And I think I don't favor slowing down the process, but I do favor redoubling the efforts on the outreach. So that's my 2 cents.
No, thank you, Jeff. And yeah, I didn't mean to suggest that they were inadequate. I just mean, I guess where I was going with it was that I want more. I want more communication. I don't want that to be the only reach specific meetings. I would love to have another set of meetings where we then go through. Because even whether you're going to do it here, or you're going to do it in the EPC committee, having looked at your feedback, all that information, it's not going to be possible to squeeze it all into one meeting. It's going to have to be as separate as those reaches. And that's what I would be looking for. I love that you met with Gateway. I think that we maybe need to start making some meetings specific with the buildings. Perhaps the homeowners coalition, or I can work with the homeowners coalition to get the homeowners, the condo buildings together. But then we can also coordinate with the rental buildings in the reaches. And then you can do a specific presentation that way, and we just kind of do it maybe in their building, in one of the lobbies, or not, you know, one of their rooms, not the lobby. And we kind of go that way. I know it's a lot more work for you guys, but that is a better way to get out there. And it's almost like you have to spoon feed people, but you do. That's what the frustration is. You do. And then if anything else, a way to look at it is you're like bulletproofing yourself from criticism, because you're doing as much as you possibly can. Anything else you said, Jeff, made me want to say something, and I forgot what it was now, so I'm going to stop talking. Sarah, Brittany, Tammy, I assume you want to go last, but you don't type in. But otherwise, it's Sarah, Brittany. Sarah, you don't want to talk, or you do?
I do.
Good, please.
Sorry, I just, the other factor with those reach meetings, although I found them very interesting, the designers always had a choice of which one they thought was the best before we got there. The other interesting part was these people aren't talking with the other people that are doing things in our area. They're not talking to the Army Corps of Engineers. So we may have a giant, I don't know, $200,000 trillion seawall going up, as well as everything else. We don't know what else is going to happen because the 3 different groups are not coordinating. They're not talking to each other. It drives me nuts because we're all wasting our time. If they're going to do that, they're going to do that. And we have no control over it. Nick has no control over it. Nobody here has control over it. It's annoying. And until they talk to each other, we are the lowest of the low. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you. No, good point, because communication among the different agencies is really important, and understanding the parameters, which again, I'm not allowed to, if I understand it correctly, we can't go over the height flood height elevations and everything else here, that's for Alice's group. But having consistency across the board be important. And I think that's what Sarah's going for, is consistency across the board. And to know that as with Wagner Park and then the Battery, there's a discussion and a consensus going through, but then we don't know, because the city's not there yet, how is that going to fit in? And then going north, don't know what that HAT study and what the Army Corps of Engineers is planning to do. We all find it horrifying, the wall that they're planning to build between the bike path and the walking path, or the bike path. Yeah, that's what they want to put on the bike path. What you do and what you're able to figure out here may in fact form what they do north. I would love is for us to come up with a better plan, figure out a way to avoid that horrible decision and eventuality blocking the access to the waterway. But again, we need to talk to them to find out what's going on. Okay, Brittany, mute her, please. And Nick, you should speak. Let's go, Brittany, go first, then Nick, then Tammy. Go ahead, Brittany, you're unmuted.
Hey, can you hear me? Great. As you could probably guess, I have a lot to say on this topic. I think that the workshops are helpful. They were really great. One of the last pieces of feedback that I gave was, until you know the DFEs on all the reaches, you cannot ask the community to speak to the reaches and select a reach. I think that you really have to provide all the information before we move forward. I think it was a good step. I agree with what I think it was Sarah that said. I felt like that some of the designers had a preconceived push of which one they thought was better, especially when it came to the duck pond piece, I will say. But I think it was good, and I think you have to continue to do it. You know, the signage went up in Wagner when the DIS needed to be commented on. That signage needs to be up now to drive people to these meetings. And, you know, I know that it's in the broadsheet and all these other places, but it needs to be in someone's face and all around. So it needs to go up right now. And especially as we move into the summer, you should have the same amount of signage that you have up at Wagner and you had up in Wagner in August, right now, all around Battery Park, driving people to the meetings. The meetings need to be organized well in advance and advertised. You know, it's really hard. I've said this before on these meetings as well as the others. They're all at the same time. That hour of 5 to 8 for most working parents, that's the only time they have with their kids. And you have to get childcare, and that's why you're not going to see a lot of people there. So you also have to think about the timing of the meeting, of being able to swap it to make it so more people can attend. I know I personally had a lot of issues attending some of them, and even had a 11-year-old babysit my kids that had never babysat and was scared to babysit so I could come. So I think that happened a lot to people. So if you want attendance, you also need to make it so reduce the friction in attending. Justine, I think, quite honestly, the best meeting that I've had on all of resiliency was in your committee. I think it was in December, November, I forget which one it was. We brought them, we went reach by reach, question by question. Took a long time. It could be broken up into 2 days, but I don't think it should be a one-time thing. I think that should be quarterly throughout every single step of the process. I think it was really, really valuable, and I think it's really valuable to have everyone hearing all the answers, right? That was my one thing on the workshop, is you don't know what the other table's talking about, the answers that they've gotten, and you don't always know if they're consistent too. So I think it's really, really important that you hear kind of everything, and it's all recorded, and everyone can go back and listen if they missed it. So, I mean, at least quarterly, I would say, do that same exact meeting in that same format that you did before. To Jeff's point on the community not being able to afford experts, I wish Greg Scheindlin was here, because he has a really great proposal that we think the authority should fund experts for the community that work on behalf, in any kind of courtroom, or you have public advocates for the community. I think that you need experts that can come on and say, yeah, you could do it that way, but you could do it this other way. Experts that are really representing the community and could say, yeah, those are two options, but here's a third and a fourth option, and that will give trust, right? That really work on behalf of the community, and the community trust that they're working on their behalf, just like we had Olin and Mikado Savetti. Like, I think that there is a strong case to hire experts for the community board that report directly to the community and advise. So, yeah, I mean, I think we should leverage the summer with the people out. Nick, you could, I don't know what's going on with that Poet's House, why that's still under construction, but I would put up signage and have an open house that people can walk in at their will with what's going on, and have open office hours that everyone has every week, that they know that they can go in and ask questions and get answers. But I would leverage people out and about and get the signage up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brittany. Appreciate that. Nick, go ahead.
One second.
Right.
All right. I was trying to figure out how to put my hand down. I'm happy to defer to Tim if she wants to go first, whatever the chair deigns best.
There you go. I get she wants him to go first. Well, I will say this while you're thinking.
Okay. Yep.
Before Nick.
Remember, I'm
Say
sorry.
again?
I couldn't hear you.
I'll go before Nick.
Okay. Let me say this. And maybe one of the things you were saying and what Brittany was saying about notice and getting the word out. One of the ways in which you could do is all your kiosks that you have that can now be activated along the way, and they should all have advance notice of every reach meeting and every meeting. And I like what Brittany said about quarterly. As we get forward down the process, we need to break it up. So I don't think you're going to do all reaches at once. So we pick whatever one you're going to decide to do first, which to focus on once we get past a certain point. And I don't know what that point is, but we get to the next level, and we're going to start doing something. We're going to focus on one, hash that out, then we hash out the second one, and then the third, and whatever. But anyhow, okay, go ahead, Tammy.
So we have had a discussion on this internally with Alice and environmental protection, and basing on the dialogues and concerns, we're looking at whether you include COVID or not is immaterial for the planning process, but Wagner was a 6-year lead time. And this project is far more complex. There are already temporary measures that are put in place in many of the spots along the way. And this process should have at least, if not more, of a greater timeline. I'm not saying delay anything. I'm just saying reach by reach needs to be individually done. We have already learned, we were very grateful that we had the combo reach meetings versus the giant one, because people cannot consume that amount of information. It's practically a mile-long stretch. So while the engagement that the BPC has laid out seems extraordinarily expedited in comparison to what we did for a 3-phase project, which was Pier A, the Battery, and Wagner, assuming if you want to just include the Museum of Jewish Heritage with Wagner. The space and landscape from South Cove, from the north side of starting at First Place, going all the way up to North Moore, is so incredibly large. To do a proper due diligence with public engagement means having a robust section by section dialogue. And it was nigh impossible. I mean, Jeff, who attends so many of our meetings, and we have the ability to be remote now, even missed the first 2 because of the things, because there were so many meetings in a short period of time. I am glad that Justine got an update I did not get an email with an update of any of the summaries, Nick. I just checked my email. I'm just, no, it's okay. I don't need to be the one. What I
I'm so
need,
glad that I let you go first because go ahead.
okay. What
Go
we
ahead.
need as a community board to ensure that we can engage in the community. While you were away, I specifically asked. We have the city agencies who are able to do this with us, who gave us a list of who they have been in contact with. So then we could, as a community board, partner and say, hey, here's an organization we think you're missing. I am not going, as one member of the BPCA suggested, to tell every single person that I run into, hey, did you know that there's a reach meeting? Did you know this? That's not the way this partnership needs to work. I really need, and for the public and the community board, we need to be able to sit down and say, okay, here's the list of people that you're working with. Who are the maritime people that you're working with to understand what the effects and changes you're doing, for example, at North Cove or at South Cove. There were questions that I asked Gwen after we met when we're doing the East Side Resiliency. They had a maritime workshop, and the city learned an incredible amount of information from that. The Battery Park City Authority should be doing the same thing. We never heard anything during any REACH meeting about the potentials for what happened at 9/11. What is being done when you're redeveloping and looking at all of this to ensure that emergency maritime egress is possible, right? Are any of the railings being replaced? If so, what are they being replaced with? Will they have an ability for pickups and drop-offs on a full-scale emergency basis instead of having people climbing over? I mean, all of those conversations actually are part of the design conversations within the reaches that need to be had, right? Some of them were had, some of them weren't. When we get all of the summaries, we would like to share them out with everyone and then ensure that when you have a follow-up meeting for REACH 1 and 2, we can help to ensure that the stakeholders are in the room, because having a one-on-one off does not help the public understand. The residents of IPN should be in the room when the public is talking about redesigning North Moore Street. We can help with having BMCC in the room because the public who attends those meetings needs to hear the perspective of the people who live along that stretch. We needed to have more robust engagement with the people who are on Pier 25. And the public needs to hear that. And quite frankly, REACH 1 and 2, and I said this to Eric, and I said it to Gwen, and I've said it, I think, to you before you left. Those need to be redone when you have the engineering done. We did a REACH meeting without knowing what the engineering was, which is exactly what we said we didn't want to do on the west side, because that's what happened with ESCR. And we know that without the engineering solutions and knowing what can be done along the West Street corridor, you can't actually really make a plan for how REACH 2 connects to REACH 1, because you don't know if you're connecting along the bike path in the middle of 9A, through a lane in 9A, or where it's going. But it all goes back to having a little bit more dynamic one by one. I don't think you can squeeze the feedback and comments for all 4 reaches into one meeting. I think you need to do a meeting per reach, and we need to really make sure that the people in the room. So I asked for the list of your outreach so we could then turn around and say, hey, you know what, you talked about this reach, but this group doesn't seem to be on your list. Let's make sure this group, let's make sure this group, let's make sure this group. And quite frankly, I mean, I'm very grateful to the Gateway Plaza Tens Association because they shared the information, and and Jeff says that the management company shared it. That's great because it's super important. And I also hear from them that there will be potentially a presentation just for that building. I mean, it's, 3,000 to 4,000 people who live there alone. So it's a large number, and that's awesome, but we want to help. And we want to get this right. I don't think that we have a need to get this done, but we also have a need to make sure that it's not in the same situation that people don't know what's going on until the bulldozer rolls down the street.
Tammy, go ahead, Nick. It's all yours.
No, Tammy, I agree. I welcome the help and thank you. There are going to be instances, certainly, that there are organizations or individuals or groups within the Community District 1 catchment area that is not within BPC, all right? And I think certainly there, although within BPC as well, but certainly that delta is certainly a place that we can use help in identifying folks that we should be reaching out to, or, hey, we've spoken to the organization, but there's this other organization that works with them, or this particular individual couldn't make it that night or that particular meeting. I think inherent in the challenge is you're never going to have, as Jeff had said, it seems, I think, at the start of this conversation, every single person with an interest in the project available in one place at one time. But we don't want to set that up and say, well, since that can't happen, you can't do your best to try and reach as many people as you can. We want to continue to get as many people engaged in these meetings as we could and we can. We've always been very aggressive. We were very aggressive about pushing out notices for those meetings in all the local papers, to all the building managers, the community board. Lucian was incredibly helpful in getting it out in the community board newsletters. Tam, you put it in your chair report, so thank you for that. Little by little, we have no want not to have anyone who is interested in the topic to attend all the meetings all the time. And man, it's a lot of meetings and a lot of prep, as you all know. But we think what we get at the end of it is a project that is more informed for more people being involved. So yes, we will certainly take the help in identifying folks that we may not have thought of, or different folks that you have relationships with that should be involved. And the other thing, Tammy, is there's always a point at which we didn't want to go too long between when we had that September meeting and when we had the conversation about trying to break those meetings up into reach specific meetings. Part of that was going to be, we had to reach specific meetings, but there was still obviously information that we were working toward, but we didn't want to not have a meeting and then come back to you with, hey, here's the fully formed thing, because then we get back into the position where you made these decisions without talking to us. We don't know all of the answers yet, but as we know what we can know, and we were approaching a particular milestone at design, we wanted to make sure we were breaking that up. And I want to thank you certainly, because that September meeting that we had was a long and tough meeting. What grew out of that was the idea that this is too much to do in one night. Ended up being 4 nights with specific reaches each time. And while I imagine it was not perfect, I think we got some valuable feedback there. So thank you. And yes, we will take the help.
Yes, I'm going to call on you next in a second, but no, I think that makes sense. And I just want you to make sure, Nick, that you're hearing us. It's great that you're doing the broadsheet, the community newsletter, your newsletter, all this that's a given.
I will hunt people down in their units if I could. I can't.
So funny.
I want to get people there.
And as Jeff said, it is truly, you could lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. I mean, as much as you beat them over the head to say, hey, this is happening, people don't show up, and that's fair. But as many avenues. So thank you for agreeing to work with us, and let's keep the lines of communication open.
And the kiosks, that's a good point. I know Tam and I discussed it when the meetings happened. We did have posters in the kiosks. I think the idea of having notification in the kiosks about the Northwest project kind of being out there and being planned is a good one. It can't be, I don't think, yet the exact shape and form that the South Battery Park City Resiliency Project poster took, because that poster had a rendering of what it was going to look like. We're obviously not even there yet, right? But some type of consistent, constant presence in the parks when people know, like, hey, scan here for information that brings you to the site and lets you know here's the next meeting. I think there's value in that.
That's something that's useful.
We don't want people caught by surprise.
Print out the signs, right? So that's a great idea with the scan.
We don't want people caught by surprise. Even as I sit here and I know there will be so many people caught by surprise because they didn't know it, they didn't hear it, they didn't read it, they didn't see it. Nonetheless,
You're gonna have this
we're trying to whittle down that number. We're trying to whittle it down.
They're gonna have this meeting as proof that we're having the conversation, that you're trying, and that we're aware of it. Tammy and then Betty. Oh, Betty, then Tammy.
Okay.
All right, thanks. I'll be brief. Yes, while looking for different populations, because I know we had everything announced in my building and a lot of people didn't want to go and they didn't go. So it isn't just a matter of informing people because my building did get emails from the management. So
Oh, I'm glad to know they did that. Thank you, Betty.
yes, well, I always push them to do that. They're the board of directors, and so they do that. So maybe going through the coalition and asking them to ask that there be something that goes out in each of their buildings would help.
I will do that
I want to
again.
go back
Thank you.
to, I'm really glad when I had a very good time and I would sit with people, with engineers especially. It was very helpful because they often said things such as, we never had a real person with a physical disability who could really look at it and ask us questions. We had to answer, and there were a lot of things that completely blew by us and we thought we were looking and we just didn't really know what to look for. Given that, one, I wish there was a way of screening some people with other disabilities, not only a couple more people with physical disabilities, such as people who rappel, manual wheelchairs. They have different issues than I do. As far as width, they also have different issues, some strengths, some weaknesses, but also in terms of like visual loss. You know, I try to ask them questions, but I just don't have the expertise to do a good job of that. If there'd be some way of getting a pool of people with different abilities, disabilities, who could kind of look through the plans with the engineers and given off the cuff of some of their concerns or questions they would have for themselves in those situations. That would be appreciated because the burden shouldn't all be on me and I don't feel it is, but. So I appreciate the maritime people and their expertise because I saw that and it was very valuable. I'd like a broader disabled population input. Thanks.
Thank you, Betty.
Thanks, Betty. That was very good. Thank you.
Good point.
Tammy?
I will
You
make
want me
an
to
effort.
call Brittany first or you? Brittany first. Okay, Brittany, please unmute her, Lucian.
Sure, Brittany, go ahead.
There you
You
go.
can
You're
hear me?
unmuted. Yes,
Great.
ma'am.
Yeah, I think again, I would say signs in the park, and you could use that same image of just the reaches. You don't need to have like images, right, of what it's going to look like. I mean, that's part of the point is that there's still time to influence that, but you could have that one image of the different reaches so people are clear that that's happening, you know, being impacted there. And I would have a lot of them and really large. You should be leveraging the PTAs all do newsletters every week. You should leverage the PTA's newsletters as well. You know, the nursery schools and all those other schools, they send out to all their families weekly newsletters. So you should get the advertisement directly in there and have like a contact list that you know, you have the person, they're your champion in terms of pushing out information, and they publish it for you. And you could go to their, you know, PTAs have monthly meetings, and you could go into those meetings and talk to all the families there as well. And I'll reiterate, like a lot of the problem is the childcare issue of the timing of the meetings. So people might have known about it, but they couldn't actually attend because of the childcare issue. So I think, again, varying the times of the meetings is really, really important. Are we going to talk about funding of the project?
We could. Yes, no, I'm not, she's
thought
not
that
shaking
was
her head. We could.
environmental.
Right, Jeff, what'd you say?
I thought that was environmental. I had a follow-up to what Brittany was just saying.
No,
though.
funding's us because it's coming out of our pockets. That's what I thought.
Correct. So one of the things, Nick, that, you know, in the process of what we do as a board, we speak by resolution. That is what our official opinion and conversation and vote is. So I actually would like to see if the Battery Park City Committee, and it doesn't have to be here, it can come out of environmental, is ready to do a resolution on the public engagement in terms of what we would like to see moving ahead, what we think. I mean, we were very grateful for the change in process. and it worked much better. I thought these meetings were, as everyone has said, far more dynamic and robust, and I think everyone is in agreement. You know, we would like to see a variety of people in the room, as you know. Betty should not be the sole voice of disability in a room. No offense to Betty intended, but you know what? We should have people who are in the room who have a variety of different things. We should have more seniors in the room. We should have more people with young children. We should have more of everything in the room, more high schoolers, more this, more that, and more people from around and more experts. But in order to do that, we really do need the harping like a dead drum over here. We really need to know who you've reached so we can help augment. And we can bring people in and specifically ask people to come with their lens to understand. I guarantee you, for the people that I spoke to in our community district, they have no idea what Reach 1 and 2 means. They do understand resiliency, Northmore and West Street to Chambers, because that is a streetscape that they understand and has relative meaning for them. People understood when they didn't understand Reach 3 and 4, but if you said Rockefeller Park, they do understand that. And I think that's also an important part of engagement, because I mean, some people don't have an understanding necessarily what a community board does, what versus an elected, you know, how did we all get here? There's so many things that people don't know. So simplifying from your perspective versus the public is very different, Nick. You live it, you breathe it, you're within the four walls of your organization. How it's consumed by somebody on the outside is very different. So I would love to see if it's, you know, whatever organization you have, whether it's Reach 1, Reach 5, Reach 6, geographical things. I would love to see us do a resolution on the things we liked as a, hey, whereas this worked and whereas this didn't, and whereas this is what we'd like to see in the next step. You may not feel that we necessarily need that, but I am torn in terms of whether or not we do or we don't, in terms of getting our position out there for our elected officials who also work with you. And that's where I will leave my comment for the night.
Okay, so people on the board, my board, where do you fall? Do you think this is something that we're ready to even put a resolution together on at this point?
I've tried to make a list as people have talked and as Tammy just talked, and there are a number of things that I think are ready to say. But if we're going to delve down into what worked and what didn't, I think that's a longer discussion than what we've had.
I would agree.
It seems to me we have a couple options. One is we could do a resolution that doesn't necessarily answer all those things, or maybe we can coordinate with environmental or do some homework and be ready next month. But let me just give you the list of the things that I think we did
Thank you.
agree on. Well, as sort of an intro, we were appreciative of the outreach that has occurred so far, and we like the Reach meetings, but more needs to be done to get input, to inform residents, get input from resident stakeholders, and so forth. In terms of specific ideas, these are not necessarily in a rational order. They're in the order that they came up and I marked down. Postings on the kiosks, other physical postering of a sort of a magnitude as we saw last fall for the South Project. Maybe it doesn't include, it can't include a final rendering, but the diagram of the reaches and so forth would be helpful. Maybe a scan, a little thing to
QR
scan
code,
for
yeah.
information and so forth. There should be affirmative outreach by the authority to each residential building and not only to the management of those buildings, but to either the tenants or the condo associations within those buildings. including relevant Tribeca buildings, which would be at a minimum IPN, and the buildings along Greenwich, I guess, north of Chambers, which potentially could be impacted depending upon how Reach 1 is done. We want to have a wide demographic range of people that attend and participate, including a range of disabilities, a range of age, a range of parents and not parents, and so forth. We want there to be outreach to basically all stakeholders, not just residents, but schools and PTAs, maritime users, preschools, workers, whatever the stakeholders are that are relevant. We'd like to see some alternative timings for meetings so that people who have the same time conflict every night between 5 and 8 aren't precluded from going to any of the meetings. I think there's precedence for that kind of thing. I don't know if the alternative should be during the workday or the alternative should be on a weekend, but some thought given, and I'm sure the outreach people that the authority has on contract are familiar with dealing with that kind of issue. We like the idea of reach specific meetings, and we would like to continue to be able to focus on, have reach specific focus. We'd like to have a list of who they've reached out, their contact list, so that we can supplement it ourselves. We would, although we're not in a position to do the magnitude of outreach that the authority can do, we're more than happy to share the contact information of the people that we have that we believe should be outreached. So those are the things that I've written down. I think Tammy's comment about what worked and what didn't is a good thing, but I don't think that's a discussion that we haven't had yet.
Would agree with that, but that is still pretty robust. I didn't think we had it, but we do.
And it's up to you and the committee on whether we want to vote on a resolution that covers these points, even though it is not drafted in the form of a resolution. I defer to you all on that.
Lucian, do you want to speak?
Right before Lucian goes, the one thing that I forgot to add there, none of those reach meetings were recorded.
Yes, we want them recorded. That's
And
another thing.
and for those people who have the conflict, who should be able to at least hear what the feedback is beyond the summary, to have meetings recorded would be, yes, thank you.
Yes.
Lucian, you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. The one thing I'll just say is I have some concern about any resolution that compels me to give out the contact information of people that we may have, and I think that there are ways that, if necessary, we could collaborate with the authority and we could reach out to those who have given us their contact information and confidence, and they could reach out to those who've given them the contact information confidence without violating any other, local laws that may exist protecting the dissemination of such contact information. Other than that, I have no other. Yeah.
That's a good point. We can use general language.
Sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Jeff, thank you for taking notes throughout. I thought you did a really comprehensive job of summarizing what we did discuss. I agree that we really didn't talk about what we liked and what we didn't like, because that's more for the environmental committee is what I was understanding.
Well, I think I understood Tammy to be referring to what we liked about the
meetings,
outreach efforts and what we didn't like about the outreach
we
efforts.
didn't really go into it.
It's somewhat implicit in this list of things that
Yeah.
we're asking for.
Exactly. So no, I mean, I am okay now. I want to hear from everybody
Christine,
else.
It's
Yeah.
not what we liked about the resiliency, it's about the public engagement, because we worked
Yeah.
with Nick and BJ and Eric and Glenn and Varun and Nydia and all of the different teams there. And it's really about, we've had some really amazing, workshops and how we've done things, bicycle working group, pulling different people into the room. I mean, that using that as an example of what works and what doesn't. And that was an incredibly productive, really great way. It's about putting down, because this is not the one and done project. I guarantee you that resiliency will be back in 10 years' time when all the numbers change and we go through all of this again. Whatever the case may be, it's about setting a framework, because there are many topics that we work with the authority, and getting out there things that work, because someday we won't have Nick Bordone on the other end. It'll be somebody else.
Right, no, that makes sense.
Tammy, you really did miss me.
We did miss you. Come on, Nick. One thing I would want to talk about, read it back to me about how the meetings at different times of the day.
Well, I don't have it drafted, so I just, my little bullet point says including alternative timed meetings, but the idea is Brittany's point on scheduling meetings at, different times of day so that we
Instead
can.
of us asking for that,
Pardon?
we say, instead of us asking or demanding that, because this is a resolution now, can we say explore the possibility? Because I think it's difficult. I mean, those of us that work I could not commit to doing it during the day. I could do a Saturday or a Sunday, but I'm going to tell you that Brittany's, well, I don't want to speak for her, but there's kids, they're home on Saturday and Sunday. And I don't think it's fair to start a meeting at 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at
I
night.
wasn't going to get down into the weeds of it. I was simply going to raise the concept of
Let's
having.
explore. So leave it
alternative-
open, that's fine.
And actually, part of the way I was thinking of it is that you'd essentially have a duplicate meeting at different times, so that no one. But I mean,
Or they
it's the
record
general
what
thought
Tammy
of
said.
varying the time so that somebody doesn't miss every single one of the meetings, because that
Yeah.
time is a.
No, I hear you, but I mean, I hear you that part of it's gonna be in terms of cost, I assume, every time we have the consultants, the engineers, everybody else show up at a meeting, that costs money. And certainly,
If you
no,
don't want to include the point, I won't include the point.
I'm not saying don't include it. I don't think it's bad. I think maybe just make it kind of
I'll make
explore
it
the
general.
possibility.
Explore.
General. I don't want to be putting a resolution saying we insist on having
No, none of this.
multiple options, but if it's general, that's fair, because then we can try, and if it works, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to see. I feel we'll get pushback, but otherwise, I thought it was pretty good. So then I'm gonna go back to our committee now and ask you guys to weigh in and maybe put your cameras on. Everybody who's gonna vote, and if you're willing to, if you're able and willing, based on the kind of general information that Jeff put forth, you take a vote, yay or nay. I need Marianne, I need Sarah, I need Jimmy. Are you on our committee? I love it if you are. Is she a new member? Oh, Tammy, of course, but you're committing your things on. I don't know if Deb is on the committee. If you are,
That is auditing.
auditing. Okay, so you don't have to put it on. Jimmy, if you're there, you have to put your camera on, please. We could vote. And what I'm going to do in the meantime, as Jimmy is getting himself organized, is ask. Okay, so Betty, go ahead, say something.
I'm not ready to vote until I hear what we're voting on. Very specifically, what's being voted on. Again, I don't see this as a huge rush either, but.
I don't see it. Yeah, neither do I. But that would be my next question. That's why I'm asking. Could we wait to do this next month, Tammy, or you need this on the books now? I mean, I think we have a little bit of time.
That's a question for Mr. Bordone. Correct.
When's our next set of meetings? Yeah.
Jeff has read out everything. And the question is, therefore be it resolved. What is the therefore be it resolved?
Therefore be it resolved.
Well, most of these are be it resolved.
Yeah, I think so. I think the beginning part is just
I mean,
simply saying we like, thank you for doing this. We reached out, but then after it's going to say we want signage, we want communication, we want more, the kiosks. I think those are all the therefore be it resolved, where we're just kind of memorializing some of the stuff that we've said.
I think Betty makes a good point. Generally speaking, I mean, when I vote on a resolution at the full board meeting, I look at what it actually says, and sometimes a word choice
Makes
here
a
or there. It could
difference.
cause me to go one way or the other. I mean, Nick, you've heard our general comments, and I mean, I would think that we could pass this resolution at our May meeting after, come to the May meeting with it drafted up,
Yeah,
and we wouldn't have lost time. I don't think anything in here is kind of a surprise in terms of the kind of engagement that we think is important, and that it appears that you're trying to reach that same level of engagement, and some of these details may not be in it, and that's why it's important to put it in the resolution.
I mean, I don't know that you'd actually disagree with anything we said, except maybe a meeting at 10 PM. Yourself unmuted. You're muted, Nick, if you're talking to us.
Sorry, I'm just dealing with something here.
No, it's okay.
Hold on one second. Yes, if helpful to the group, in terms of public touch points, we will be looking to do our next meeting probably in the June timeframe. So May would be okay if it makes sense for you.
My goodness, yes. Poor wife in the background. So with that said, why don't we take this up? Jeff, do you mind? We'll work together. I'll help you.
Yeah, we can work together on a draft for the next meeting.
That makes sense. Good point,
I'll
Betty.
send you all
So
a
let's-
template.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Thank you, Lucian.
And then we'll go from there and we'll vote on it. Hopefully it'll be a quick discussion next meeting, but we'll see. And if there's more things that you want to discuss, you can. Look at that sweet little baby. Let's see her face, Nick. And Eric, your baby got so big. So big. That was so nice to see.
Show us her face, Nick.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, there she is. Hi, sweetie.
She got so big.
Kiss for all the babies. All right. Next, I think it's Patrick and then Nick, and then we're done. Am I right? We're going to pick it up next, Timmy. We decided we'll vote on it after we see it next month. All right. So Patrick, you go first so Nick can dress his baby.
Okay. Basically, I'm sure it's part of Nick's report, but for March, comparing graffiti compared to 2022 and 2023, we had 93 reports. Yeah, we had 93 reports there in 2022 and 6 this year. Homeless, they interacted with only 2. Last year, we interacted with 3 this year. Lost and found property, last year we were at 30. This year we're at 3. Park rules, last year was 32. This year we're at 6. Vendor solicitation was 2. This year we're at 0. Dogs, last year was at 3. This year we're at 4.
So interesting, Patrick. Why the big difference? Any ideas?
Well, if you recall, because of COVID, okay, the parks, the grass area and that stuff was not closed off.
Right, okay.
And this year, part of the fields were closed off.
Yep.
So that cut down on the number of reports of people doing what they wanted to do.
That makes sense.
So that's basically the positive end of it. Dealing with the ball field, we were dealing with, there was a person going around handing out wristbands and like trinkets. So it's important to let the kids know out there, don't accept this stuff. We ended up, when the safety ambassador observed it, he went and spoke to the guy and notified Parks that was there. And the guy was asked to leave, at which point he did leave. So, so we're constantly watching stuff like that. All right. The homeless are now, we're not getting them as aggressive, but they're high on whatever. So basically we're going along and we're calling the ambulance for them because they're passed out wherever they are. So that's really it. I'm just back from being away, so I'm playing
Welcome
catch
back.
up.
There you
Thank
go.
you.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I finally took
so-
a vacation.
That's nice. That's nice vacation. All right. So I think, Nick, if you're ready, we might be ready. Although, Patrick, I'm going to put this bug in your ear in terms of when they activate that space along the Pataki Parkway, thinking about having a routine patrol. Make people call, make it be a routine walkthrough.
Oh yeah, I'll end up putting the geotags so that there's always a safety ambassador there scanning a geotag. So we'll be able to control the time that they're there and everything else with it.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're
All right,
welcome.
Nick. Thank you for being with the whole call.
Okay.
Go ahead, Nick.
Thank you.
It just
If you guys
seems,
haven't put it together, Patrick and I are vacationing together now. I'm just kidding.
just
Oh,
seems,
Eric has a question before. Eric has a
Oh,
question.
go ahead. Go ahead, Eric.
I just want to know if there's any update on the rat poison.
Oh, that's a really good question. Nick, you probably don't even know about this.
I saw the emails and thank you, Lucian, I know, for putting it out. So I have to check where we are with it. It wasn't obviously anything we had to do with. I think we were trying to ID what it was with the buildings. Patrick, did you have anything more on that? I'm getting caught up on it, but I don't have more.
What I could, and Jeff, maybe you can speak to it, because I know from Paula, after we first announced it, we put the word out on every place we possibly could, and I
Yeah.
haven't seen anything or heard anything.
Yeah,
I just went around and picked them up.
that's right. I know Eric Munson reached out to me to give a report on it. And it does appear that some individual apparently had put out something that appeared to be rat poison, apparently well, we don't really know what the intention was to harm small animals, whether they were harming dogs or pigeons or rats, unclear. They consisted of blue pellets, and as Nick mentioned, the authority doesn't use rat poison at all. Some of the buildings do, but the buildings have it in bait traps. They don't just spread around rat poison for anybody to pick up. One of the buildings in front of which this stuff was seen did have their maintenance people just clean it all up, and so we haven't seen any further signs of it since then. I'm out there walking my dog every day, and I have not seen it since then.
That's been our observation too, Jeff. I know we had spoken with the building. I think not we. I think our parks operations folks did, and we have had the same experience where we haven't seen it since. But we'll keep monitoring. And if anyone sees it for sure, let's word out as soon as we can. We'll make sure that we are getting to the right folks to make sure it gets cleaned up. That's not what Battery Park City is about.
No, definitely not. Thank you, Eric, for bringing that up, because that's important that we should have some discussion of it. I also think getting it out there as much as we did on so many levels of social media and everything was huge, because I think whoever it was realized either I'm going to get caught or this is not a good thing to do. So that was useful. Anybody else? I'm sorry, I missed the question. I didn't see your hand. Apologize. All right, Nick, you go.
Okay, and I will be. We'll try and bring this home relatively quickly. A lot of the stuff I think we covered elsewhere. But thank you again. It's good to see everyone. Happy spring. Lucian, if you want to bring that all up, thank you. I will run through this in short order. So the first thing I wanted to mention to the group here is, Justine, I think I mentioned this to you as well when we spoke. Well, first thing I should say is top of page 2, Lucian, we have a bunch of Earth Week activities coming up, obviously to celebrate Earth Week, which is next week, the 17th to the 22nd. All the details are there. That's also running in the pages of the esteemed broadsheet. There's a QR code that you can scan, but a bunch of free events across Battery Park City for Earth Week, including family birding events, local honey, Steam Dream for the kids on Earth Day itself on Saturday, etc. Obviously a blood drive. So please feel free to check those out. All that information is there. And then the second item on that page is the mobile mammography, which is coming to Battery Park City. That's on April 25th. That's coming right up. But again, like everything else, early detection saves lives. So in partnership with Mount Sinai, the mammography van is coming to Battery Park City right by 200 Rector Place. If you are over 40 years old and haven't had a mammogram in the past year and have no signs or symptoms of breast disease, that's the best time to make sure you're getting screened. So that information is there. There's information and a number to call. There's information you need to bring on the day of your appointment, but certainly please do take advantage of that. Slots are limited, but if you have the opportunity to do that, go ahead and get your free screening there. Free, obviously, with insurance, but you know what I mean. Go ahead and see if you can get a schedule. Our summer 2023 events calendar is about to be launched. And that obviously updates and details events throughout Battery Park City from May through August. It's crazy to think about the summer already being here, but as it were, here it is. And you will see more details on that as they come out. But River and Blues, music, dancing, art, etc., is all coming to Battery Park City. Next item there, I will run through this fairly quickly. We have our parks happenings. The one thing I wanted to note there, and we have a lot of points, but Justine, I know this is important to you. The volleyball court will actually be installed this week. So as I sit here this evening, I believe it's going to be either tomorrow or Thursday. The volleyball net should be up. Okay.
So much,
That's
Nick.
that's the
Appreciate
net
it.
and the net. Yeah, I
Yes.
know we talked about trying to get it up. We're always trying to get it up for the start of May. We were able to push it up a bit. Concomitant with that, I will get you and the groups that use the volleyball net, hopefully a little more in advance this year, the dates when we know the net is going to have to come down for other events happening along the Esplanade, and that's for planning purposes. So we'll try and get you those dates in advance as well. Okay. Wait, one second. Hold on a second. Okay, next thing, going down to page 5. We have dog waste compost. That's just, again, that's more with the parks happenings. I will go through that. Okay, page 6. I know we talked about this to some extent this evening, but thank you to all who participated in our REACH specific workshops. Those are some pictures of the event on our website. Tammy, I know we had done this early in February, and I'd sent along from the first 2 meetings, but on the website, as we speak, you can click on Northwest, and from each of the meetings, February 8th, February 16th, March 6th, and March 15th, you will have all the information provided at those meetings, the presentation, the handout, the booklet, and just this week I added the comments. So the line-by-line comments that we received at each of those meetings is also posted. As we have more information from those meetings, I will post it to the Northwest site. That's bpca.ny.gov/nwbpcr/ and that will get you right to that information. I will take a moment now here at the top of, I think it's page 7, to commemorate and honor our friend Robert Simcoe. We had the opportunity late last month to host Robert Simcoe's Lower Manhattan 50 Years of Photographs in close conjunction with Allison, his wife, and Deo, his son. And it was a wonderful week-long celebration of the man and his photographs, detailing and chronicling Lower Manhattan for the better part of the last half century. So thank you to Robert for being just a wonderful friend and neighbor. And I think about him every day. I really do. He was a good man. And we were very fortunate and lucky to be able to help his family celebrate a wonderful life, his wonderful life in this way. So thanks to all who attended. That was really a wonderful thing to happen at 6 River Terrace. Running through the end of this now, I think we are mostly through it. I think those are the main points. For now. And I will get this up on our site as well as with the other presentations from this evening. Last thing I would note is our board meeting for April schedule was switched. That's actually April 12th. That got pushed up. The rest of the board meeting board meeting schedule is detailed there, as it always is, the bottom of page 8. And with that, that's it. Justine, I tried to go as quickly as I can, but thank you.
You did a great job, Nick. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Nick?
Oh, I'm sorry. One last thing, just because Betty's on my mind. Events coming up for the month. The only 2 we have for the month is the, that's at page 9 there, Lucian. I'm sorry.
Going,
Dutch King's
yeah.
Day, that's a small event that happens every year. And the 9/11 Memorial and Museum event, that's on Sunday, April 30th. That's large, but the only change
Other
there,
way.
yeah, one page down, Lucian. It's
Oh,
in the
sorry.
blue blocks.
Oh, I
There
see.
you go.
Okay, thank you.
The only closure we have there, I think, is Battery Place between First Place and Little West. The rest of the route for that run is as it has been in the past, and I believe that group it will be or has been or should be in touch with Betty and the Transportation Committee. But impact should be minimal as far as they go, and not any real changes to what we've seen in years past. And that was it.
They're gonna have to close down Battery Place, right? Oh yeah, it's gonna be closed. You said so. Yeah, has to
Just
be.
one stretch, just the one stretch between First Place and Little West.
Okay. Make sure we put notices up. I'm sure Betty's gonna talk about this, but that those buildings along there are notified of that, so they know they have to get out.
Actually,
We'll get the word out.
transportation already met this month. They are scheduled for executive committee.
Okay. Okay, cool. So they're not gonna talk with you, and this is coming up. Ah, yeah, it has to be executive committee. That makes sense. Thanks, Betty. Because yeah, that's a big thing. Nick, make a note, figure out what buildings are there and make sure that they're well aware because you're closing the street and people may need to get out, you know, whether it's emergencies, whatever else, they're gonna need to know. Thank you.
Yep.
Mary Ann has a hand raised.
Yeah,
Yes,
if
Mary
I
Ann.
could just also add, that's probably going to affect buses that run there, both the
yeah.
downtown connection and the regular MTA. So we need to know what the impact will be.
So Nick, you have time. You don't have to tell us now. But you have time to tell us for executive. That would be important. They're just not gonna run or they're gonna miss stops or whatever. I don't know. I don't think they can just stop.
Yeah, well, like it may not be me, but I will make sure that whoever's getting the presentation, make sure that information is clear and that we can push something out in our newsletter or blog or et cetera.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Anybody else? See nothing.
Done before
Thank you
9
all.
o'clock.
Yeah, right before 9 o'clock. Exactly. I'm excited. It's before 9 o'clock. I love it. I appreciate everybody. Appreciate everybody's input. Jeff, once again, thank you for taking those notes because that was key. And
Sure.
everybody, good night. See you all
Good night, all.
next meeting. Take care. Good night.